그래서 어쩌면 우리가 함께 노력한다면 어느 정도 진전이 있을 수도 있겠습니다. 사실 그 한국에서 올림픽에 열렸을 때 북한 때문에 많은 사람들이 올림픽 표를 사지 않는 그런 현상이 생겨났었습니다. 그런데 김정은 위원장이 그때 사실은 김정은 위원장과 초기에는 제가 별로 사이가 좋았던 것은 아닙니다. 서로 락켓맨이라고 부르면서 주고받는 그러한 그 해프닝도 있었습니다. 그런데 어느 날 통화를 시작하게 되었고 통화를 하면서 그가 얘기를 했습니다. 한국에서 올림픽이 곧 열리는데 우리 그 북한도 참가하겠다. 그렇게 얘기를 했습니다. 그리고 그 통화 직후에 올림픽표가 많이 팔리기 시작했습니다. 그리고 한국의 올림픽은 올림픽 역사상 가장 성공적인 올림픽으로 지금 기록되고 있습니다. 또 우리 미국도 곧 올림픽을 주최할 예정입니다. 그래서 우리도 미국에서 성공적인 그런 올림픽을 주최할 계획을 가지고 있습니다.
김정은 위원장 말씀을 하셔서 그런데 사실 대통령님 덕분에 이 북한하고 이 한반도 관계가 매우 안정적이었습니다. 그런데 사실 그 이후 대통령께서 미국 정치에서 잠깐 물러서 있는 그 사이에 사실은 북한의 미사일도 많이 개발됐고 핵폭탄도 많이 늘어났고 진척된 것도 없이 한반도 상황은 정말로 많이 나빠졌죠.
Mr. President, you mentioned about Chairman Kim, and thanks to your efforts when you were in office during your first term, the situation on the Korean Peninsula was stable. But during the hiatus where you were out of office, North Korea developed further its nuclear and missile capabilities, and that led to a deterioration on the situation of the Korean Peninsula.
And they wouldn't have done that. They would not have done that if I were president. That
내가
was not going to
만약에
happen.
대통령이 당선되었다면 그런 일이 일어나지 않았을 것입니다.
전적으로 공감합니다.
I completely agree with you.
그래서 지금 얼마 전에 김여정이 미국과 저를 비난하는 발언을 할 때도 대통령과 김정은 위원장의 특별한 관계에 대해서는 의심하지 않는다 이런 표현을 했습니다. 기다리고 있다는 뜻으로 보여졌습니다.
So when Kim Yo-jong, the deputy director of the Workers' Party of Korea, issued a statement denouncing South Korea, she mentioned about the not bad relationship between you and Chairman Kim Jong-un, and I believe that this is a sign that North Korea is waiting.
한반도의 평화의 새 길을 꼭 열어주시기 바랍니다.
So I hope that you will usher in a new era of peace on the Korean Peninsula.
I will do that, and we'll have talks. He'd like to meet with me. He didn't want to meet with Biden because he had no respect for Biden, but we look forward to meeting with him, and we'll make relations better. You'll help that. You had a lot of leaders. I've gone through a lot of leaders in South Korea. You know, it's been quick. You'll be there for a long time. But we, in the various leaders that I've dealt with, they were not approaching it properly, in my opinion, having to do with North Korea. But I think your approach is a much better one.
네, 그렇게 하도록 하겠습니다. 김 위원장이 바이든 전 대통령을 만나고 싶죠 하지는 않았지만 말은 만나고 싶어 할 것 같습니다. 그래서 그런 그 시도를 하겠고요. 내가 한국의 지도자들을 여러 번을 만나봤는데 제 개인적인 생각으로는 대북 정책이 그렇게 적절하지 않지 않았나 하는 생각이 듭니다. 그래서 이 대통령께서 그 적절한 대북 정책을 통해서 좀 더 그 진전이 있었으면 하는 생각입니다.
저의 관여로 남북 관계가 잘 개선되기 쉽지 않은 상태인데 실제로 이 문제를 풀 수 있는 유일한 인물이 트럼프 대통령이십니다.
So resolving this issue through my engagement is not an easy thing. And the only person that can make progress on this issue is you, Mr. President.
대통령께서 피스메이커를 하시면 저는 페이스메이커로 열심히 지원하겠습니다.
So if you become the peacemaker, then I will assist you by being a pacemaker.
That's good. We can do big progress, I think, with North Korea. Absolutely.
네, 북한에 대해서 큰 진전을 함께 이루어 나갈 수 있다고 믿습니다.
감사합니다.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good job. Okay, questions, please.
Mr. President, when you met with Russian President Vladimir Putin, how soon did he say that he wanted to sit down with Ukrainian President Zelensky? Russia, as of now, says there's no meeting on the books and no agenda is set.
Well, that's going to be up to them. It takes two to tango. I always say it. And they should meet, I think, before I have a meeting and probably close the deal. but I think it's appropriate they meet. They do not exactly get along well, as you can understand, and I'm sure it's a meeting that perhaps he didn't like, but he wasn't happy about coming to the United States either. That was a big concession, and I appreciate the fact that he did. You know, I've always had a very good relationship, despite a fake Russia haunt that we had. But we've always had a great relationship, very good relationship, strong relationship with Russia. That's a good thing, not a bad thing, by the way. That's a very good thing. And it's good to get along with Kim Jong-un, and it's good to get along with everybody, including President Lee. It's good to get along, and I get along with the foreign leaders. You see that with the biggest group of foreign leaders that we've ever had. Don't forget the European Union was here also representing a large group of countries just recently. So I believe that we're going to get that war straightened out. We're going to get it done. I don't know that they'll meet. Maybe they will. Maybe they won't. They'd like me to be at the meeting. I said, you guys ought to work it out. It's between you. It's not us. Now, in the meantime, we're not spending any money on, as you know, on Ukraine. We're selling military equipment to NATO. NATO now is taking in, excuse me, NATO now is taking in a large amount of money from the countries. They're taking in 5% of GDP versus 2%. They're paying the 5%. They never paid the 2%, most of them or a lot of them. NATO has a lot of money. We are selling military equipment to NATO at full price, and NATO's distributing that equipment to wherever they are. I mean, perhaps to Ukraine. So NATO's working with Ukraine. Biden was giving hundreds of billions of dollars, just willy-nilly, just giving money. He had no idea where it was going. It was terrible what was happening. So we're not involved anymore in terms of the cost. We're in for $350 billion. As you know, I also got the rare earth deal done with Ukraine, which was worth much more than the $350 billion. But I'm not interested in the money so much, even though we've done a great job in that regard. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in stopping a war where last week 7,109 soldiers died, both Russian and Ukraine. It's such a waste of life and humanity. They're not from this country. They're not from any other country other than Ukraine, for the most part, other than Ukraine and Russia. But it's a very important thing to me to stop it. I stopped 7 wars that were raging, one for 31 years, the Congo, and as you know, Rwanda, one for 35 years. I don't have to go into them. You know the list better than I do. But we stopped a lot of wars, including, you think about it, India and Pakistan, which was probably 2 weeks away from being a nuclear war. They were shooting down airplanes all over the place. So I'm very proud of that. I thought this would be, in many ways, the easiest way. I have a very good relationship with Putin. I thought it would be the easiest one to stop, and it's really not. It's very complex. It's very personal from their standpoint. There's tremendous dislike personally between the two men, and we're going to have to straighten that out. But I would like to see them meet first. They'd like me to be there. I may be there. I may not. I'll see. But I wanted them to work out their differences first, because it is ultimately between them. And when that happens, I think we'll get an end.
Maybe they meet, maybe they don't. How long are you willing to let this play out? And if they don't meet, will there be consequences, and how soon for Russia?
Yeah, there could be very big consequences, but we'll see what happens. There might be very big consequences, because this is something that has to end. This war would have never taken place, and for 4 years it didn't take place. But if I were president, this war would have never taken place. There has not been a war like this since the Second World War. This is the biggest thing that's happened in terms of warfare, wars. It's a whole new form of fighting. It's a drone fighting. It's a drone war. No, a drone war never existed before. And we're actually studying it from the standpoint of Pete Hegseth and everybody. We're studying it and studying it very carefully. This is a whole new form of war, but it's a violent war. And there has been nothing like this since the Second World War. So we'll see what happens over the next week or two. And at that point, I'll step in very strongly. And if I have to be there, I'll be there. And we'll either have a deal or we won't. But a lot of people are dying, and I want to get us...
Kim Jong-un wants to meet. When do you...
It's now 1:10 on Monday. You're watching Chicago Live. We're listening in to President Trump taking questions from the White House. Let's continue to listen.
You know, you were there We even had a press conference. He had his first press conference. Kim Jong-un had a press conference. This was a little different press conference. I said, have you done a press conference before? No. And you know what? He did great. It was a great press conference, actually. It was historic. I doubt he's done one since. But I said, would you like to meet the fake news? Because whatever you want to do. And they came in like you've never seen anything like it. And then he said, enough. And that was the end of the press conference. That was the end. It ended very rapidly. But I think he had a good time. I look forward to meeting with Kim Jong-un in the appropriate future.
When you reduce the number of forces in South Korea so that the United States could have more flexibility in the region? Would you consider reducing the number of U.S. forces in South Korea so that the United States can have more flexibility?
Well, I don't want to say that now because we've been friends and we're friends. And look, we have a lot of people over there. We have over 40,000 troops in South Korea. As you know, South Korea agreed to pay for that during my last term. And then when Biden came in, they complained to Biden that I wasn't a nice person. And he agreed not to pay. He gave up billions of dollars. We were getting paid billions of dollars. But then Biden ended that for whatever reason. It's unbelievable that he did. But we have a very good relationship militarily. They would say, but we gave you land. I said, no, you didn't. You lease us land. There's a big difference between giving and leasing. And maybe one of the things I'd like to do is ask them to give us ownership of the land where we have the big fort. You know, we spent a lot of money building a fort. And there was a contribution made by South Korea, but I would like to see if we could get rid of the lease and get ownership of the land where we have a massive military base.
Would you go?
Thank you, Mr. President. How are you planning to make? I also want to ask this question to Mr. President.
Who are you with?
I'm Song Mi-jin. I'm from South Korea's Arirang TV.
Good.
Thank you so much.
Good.
So, as mentioned earlier, United States is South Korea's most important and closest allies. So, in this point of view, I would like to ask you and also President Lee, what do you think are the key ways to make the South Korea-U.S. alliance greater?
Well, I think it's great now. I feel very warmly toward South Korea. I will tell you that I have a lot of people in business that I deal with that are from South Korea. They love Trump because they feel I've saved. I think you would have had a nuclear war if I weren't. I think you would have had a nuclear war, North Korea and South Korea. I think it would have been a disaster. You're only 60 miles away from Seoul. They don't even need nuclear. They have their cannons, howitzers, and they have them buried in the mountain. You know what I'm talking about. And I think you would have had, if I didn't win that election, if Hillary Clinton, crooked Hillary, won that election, I think you would have had a nuclear war. It would have taken place, and it would have been horrendous for everybody, including them. It would have been very bad for them because we would have had to enter the picture, and we are the most powerful nuclear country in the world by far. Russia's second, China's third. China's going to catch eventually, 5 or 6 years. They're working to catch. One of the things we're trying to do with Russia and with China is denuclearization. And it's very important. One of the things I discussed with President Putin the other day, it wasn't just that, it was also other things. And I think the denuclearization is it's a big aim. But Russia's willing to do it, and I think China's going to be willing to do it too. We can't let nuclear weapons proliferate. We have to stop nuclear weapons. The power is too great. Okay? Thank you.
Mr. President, I'd like to ask you further question about South Korea and U.S. alliance. I'm Anna from the Korea Times, and I'd like to ask you about the trade deal that's on the table. You mentioned about the shipbuilding industry, and President Lee mentioned about the manufacturing industry. And what other areas or sectors that you intend to focus on this trade deal? Because Korea is bringing in many investments and create jobs as well. So I'd like to know the opinions of both, how to get a beneficial outcomes for both countries through this deal.
Well, we're going to get along great because we really sort of need each other. We love what they do. We love their product. We love their ships. We love a lot of the things that they make. And they love what we have. We're dealing with them on Alaska having to do with the oil. You need oil and we have it. So we have a big advantage in that way. We have more oil and gas and coal and energy than any other country in the world by far. No, for whatever reason, God was very good to us. He gave us the greatest. We didn't use it. We started to use wind. Wind doesn't work. They started to use solar panels that took over the land all over the Midwest, where the farmers said, what happened to my land? They'd have a 10-mile by 10-mile solar field that they couldn't farm. The most valuable land, farming land in the world, probably the most vibrant in the world. And they put solar plants all over the place. It's ridiculous. Big, massive black fields of solar that all comes out of China, all plastic. All comes out of China.
All right, you're watching Chicago Live. We've been listening to a question and answer session at the White House with President Trump and also President of South Korea, Lee Jae-myung. We're going to bring it back local here. We try to do that as much as we can with Chicago Live. And there's some news with Trump and Chicago.
Yeah, you know, it's never any dull moments here because Chicago is constantly on the president's mind, as are many other things. But the president today... really what was interesting in the Oval Office was he was going on and on and on about Chicago, whether he's going to send the National Guard here. And he said in one instance, well, I'm not going to do it unless the governor asks, which is the law. That's the federal law. Right. And then about 30 seconds later, he says, well, maybe we're just going to go in and not bother. So we have no clarity in terms of what this plan is. We just know what the Washington Post reported. And he's not denying it, that the Defense Department is working on a plan to deploy National Guard troops here.
And that's really all we know.
That's really all we know. What are they going to do? Are they going to patrol some of the high crime neighborhoods? Are they going to patrol the Loop? Typically, and I've made this point a lot, what they do when the governor calls for them is help in large-scale protests and riots, and they guard infrastructure or they use their big tanks to block streets, so that neighborhoods are safe and when people are protesting.
Not acting as police.
Not acting as police. I mean,
which I think is what the thought is, right? When you hear, National Guard, they're coming to the city, they're going to act instead of CPDs being replaced or assisted.
And I've talked to police officials over the years on this, and they are dubious on the notion that the National Guard could help in a day-to-day policing scenario. Of course they're helpful when it's a big numbers, when it's protests and riots, but day-to-day policing, they don't know the neighborhoods and they're not trained. They didn't go to the police academy, and unless the superintendent deputizes them, they can't make arrests. They can't, unless it's some kind of federal law that the president is going to deputize. So that lends the question, are they going to be mostly used for immigration enforcement? We just don't know.
What's legal?
Well, it's not legal for the president to simply call the National Guard to a state. Washington, D.C. is different because there's no governor. It's not a state. So he does have that authority. He can do it there. Here, the law, and we had Joe Ferguson, the former Inspector General of Chicago, former prosecutor. He is professor of national security law. He had a brilliant, on the 9 p.m. news on Saturday, kind of like explanation of what the law is. It's called the Posse Comitatus Act. You don't have to know that, but... What it means is that it is illegal for the president to federalize the National Guard unless the governor signs off on it of that state. Unless, very rare exceptions, unless the president declares that there's an insurrection happening, or that there's a rebellion against the government, or that there is a foreign invasion. So those three things he can invoke, and then he can utilize the National Guard. But those are things that have rarely been used throughout history, and it would be hard to say if clearly Chicago has a murder issue and a high crime issue. It is down 30%. It would be hard to say that those conditions are met in the situation that we have right now.
And like you said, just earlier today, just hours ago, he kind of flip-flopped on the issue.
It was back and forth. He completely flip-flopped. I mean, he said, well, we're going to wait for the governor, which is following the law. Then he said, well, I'm not going to wait. Maybe we'll just send him in. So
to be determined.
Maybe you just read into that he hasn't decided what he's going to do.
So get out your crystal ball, and what if they do come?
Well, I think there'll be protests here in Chicago. I mean, there is a very active protest community that's against this. Obviously, Governor Pritzker and Mayor Johnson are very staunchly against this. It could inflame tensions. It could inflame. You could see, a standoff or something like that. It just depends on what this is all about. Is it just a few hundred, 1,000 troops that are just going to insist federal immigration? Is it just some troops that are going to guard some buildings?
Federal buildings?
Federal
perhaps?
buildings?
Right.
And which would be interesting because downtown is not where the murder problems arise, that's in the west side and the south side neighborhoods, if they're going to be serious about quelling crime, you would think they'd be deployed to Englewood or to Lawndale or to Austin, maybe patrolling those neighborhoods. But again, that puts them at risk, and they're not trained as police officers. So it's a very delicate thing where, you know, the president could do this, and he could not only inflame tensions but put the lives of these National Guards people at risk. And, you know, in D.C., we really don't know what they've done there other than the images we see of them downtown, you know, where the crime problem really doesn't exist. So
what have you heard from Pritzker? What have you heard from the
Well,
mayor?
you know, he says it's illegal. They're going to do a press conference, and we're going to carry this live here, and they're going to talk about why they don't believe it's an emergency, why the president's not authorized to do this. And, you know, this is politics, too. You know, the president is taking on notoriously blue Democratic strongholds. And here in Illinois and Chicago, Democratic leaders that have been very critical of him.
And possibly a leader who may run for a larger office.
Correct. Yeah.
Meaning Pritzker.
You know, you look at California. You know, I mean, red states have typically have, especially in the South, have murder problems and high crime problems. But the president's not talking about some of the cities in those states. And you have to conclude from that politics plays a big role here. It's a show of force against his political opponents.
We were talking about this. St. Louis, Memphis, Detroit, Baltimore, Richmond, Louisville, all have per capita a higher
murder rate than Chicago. Yeah, per capita. You know, Chicago tends to have the highest number of murders because of the population, but per capita, it tends to be somewhere between 12th, 15th in the nation in terms of big cities. Not as safe as New York or LA. They've gotten their crime problem really under control. But, you know, the mayor makes the case that murders are down about 30% here, as they are across the country. And there is some research into why that is. You know, and I think it's obviously multifactorial. So many things play a role in murder. It's not just, you know, what's happening day to day. It's the economy, it's poverty, it's guns, the availability of
housing,
guns.
Education, mental health. It's not
all
just
those things.
How many troops can we put on the streets?
Well, right, and policing is obviously an important part of it. And you know, I think we've seen from the state's attorney Eileen Burke a different approach than Kim Foxx, who had a more lenient approach. Burke is like, no, we got to lock criminals up. You know, we can't put them back on the street. Maybe that's having an impact. But what the mayor and the governor are saying is like, let's look at the things that have worked and let's double down on those. They'll also say that, you know, the president has tried to withhold federal funding for some of these crime fighting efforts, and they're going to say, don't withhold that funding, give us that funding, because those are the things that work. Not saying, you know, we have to see what the National Guard plan is, however. You know, we have to see what that plan is to see if it's a viable and feasible. I just know from talking to former police superintendents, they don't think National Guards people can be police. They can't do the day-to-day policing work.
So what's happening? You got to run.
We're going to go to that press conference.
Literally, he has to run.
We're going to go to that press conference, yeah, and we'll
it's
run
going
over
to be
there.
it's a kind of a two-parter.
It seems like the governor's approach here is to kind of showcase, you know, the beauty of Chicago and to say, hey, crisis, what crisis? And, you know, people utilize that because obviously Chicago's a big, complex city. There are places in Chicago that are as safe as any place in the country. Where I live, my doors are open, my windows are open, it's totally safe. There are places in Chicago that you can't do that, you know, and that's the thing. It's like
with a lot of big
tale
cities.
of two cities, like Dickens said.
So he's going to be on a water taxi.
Yeah.
Strolling down the river.
And it just seems like, kind of like a strategy to show off the beauty of Chicago, to say, we don't need to send troops here.
And then he's also going to be meeting up with Kwame Raoul, Attorney General.
Yeah, we're going to see the senators, Duckworth and Durbin and
kind of a show of force.
It's a show of force, and we're going to see. Obviously, they oppose this, and we're just going to see. You know, the Republican pushback is, wait, so you don't want safety? You don't want more people to help keep safety? So we'll see what they say to that. Again, like when Republicans say that, it has to be brought up that where's the evidence, though, that in a situation like this, that federal troops can help? In riots, absolutely. In large-scale protests, absolutely. That's what they're trained for. But in this instance, the jury's really out in terms of whether they can be a law enforcement, peacekeeping entity.
And TBD on timing and what the plan looks like, and if they come, you know, this is all kind of...
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, the Washington Post report said September. And the president today, when he was asked about it, and he just kind of diverted.
Waffled.
We did not get a clear answer from him.
Okay. Well, you got your running shoes on? He does.
I have my running shoes on. I've learned that as much in this business. You wear a suit and tie with your gym shoes.
You can't miss your water taxi with the governor.
No.
All right, Paris Schutz, thank you so much. And you'll have
you have your comfy shoes on,
I got my
too.
comfy
Good.
shoes because we're always
on the run and
We're
standing
moving.
and all that.
Paris on politics? Could we talk
9:30. We're going to be talking about that. We've reached out to the White House. We're trying to get anyone we can to sort of give us the spill the beans here. Give us the soup on what this is going to be.
Yeah. Okay. 9:30. Paris on politics. All right. It is coming up on 126 Chicago Live. Back after a break. 2 minutes. We'll be back. Welcome back to Chicago Live. It's 1:28. A lot of political news here in the city of Chicago right now. We're going to bring in Darren Bailey. He's joining us via Zoom. He's former state senator for downstate 55th District, former member of the Illinois House of Representatives, and a former Republican nominee for governor back in 2022, losing, of course, to Pritzker. Welcome, Mr. Bailey. How are you? Oh, I think you're muted. If you could unmute for us, that would be great. No problem. This is the day and age that we live in. We'll wait for you to unmute that, and we'll start our talking. Sometimes it's difficult, right? You think you're unmuted, you think you're muted. We'll wait just a second for Mr. Darren Bailey to unmute, and then we will be discussing with him. We just had a conversation, of course, with our political reporter, Paris Schutz, about the possibility of the National Guard coming to Chicago. President Trump has brought in, of course, National Guardsmen to D.C., where he does have some rule over D.C. because there is no governor, of course. Here in Illinois, Paris was just explaining that under federal law, it would have to be the governor requesting the Illinois Guard to be able to come in to the state of Illinois and do what they need to do. Darren Bailey, can you hear me?
I got you now.
I got you now. Yes, thank you, sir. Okay, so you probably, I don't know if you could hear our conversation with Paris Schutz or not. Just tell us your response to the fact that it seems like under federal law, the president doesn't really have a right to call on National Guard to come in.
Well, as you were reading through the requirements, one thing did stand out, and that was an invasion. And I'm not sure we can't count out the fact that the invasion of the illegal immigration, of which both Brandon Johnson and J.B. Pritzker seem to be harboring. So, I agree with what was talked about earlier. The Cindy and I were downtown Chicago last Saturday night and Sunday morning, and it was wonderful. And J.B. Pritzker put out a tweet this morning walking down Lakeshore Drive at 6 a.m. My challenge is, J.B. Pritzker, why don't you head out to Inglewood, Washington Park, East and West Garfield Park, South Shore, Riverdale. Why don't you head out there tonight around 10 o'clock p.m. to 1 a.m. and tell me how safe it is there, because it breaks my heart that every time Monday morning when I take a look, and I do this every single Monday morning, what are the deaths and the crime and the shooting that took place in Chicago over the weekend, and just this past weekend, 25 shootings and 6 deaths. Those are families that are suffering. Those are families. This has been going on for a long time, but this has been unbridled since COVID. And, I didn't think Brandon Johnson could be much worse than Mayor Lightfoot, but he has been. I didn't think Pritzker's second term could be any worse than his first, but it's egregious what is taking place. So the people of Chicago want and deserve better. The number one role of government is to keep the people safe, not provide for them, but keep them safe.
And how would National Guard do that in a city like Chicago when they're not trained as police officers, but they're brought in normally to guard, or to help with crowd control? How would National Guard be able to help keep the city safe in that regard?
I think a simple presence changes much, and that's what I've been seeing from some of the stats that I've been watching just for the last week and a half in Washington, D.C. I think just a presence. You're exactly right. They don't have a role as a law enforcement, but to be there to assist and to be available to show up to respond and support law enforcement doing their job. I think that is vitally important. People's lives are at stake, and you cannot argue or disagree with what we're reading and seeing each and every day.
But Chicago has had an issue historically with crime, right? I mean, for decades. Why now?
Well, I think that I truly believe it has been, but since COVID, I think we saw a spike. We're seeing businesses, shut down and move out because, and I literally during the governor's race, I witnessed this at the Target store that's over by Comiskey Park. I witnessed this. It was right behind as it happened. We saw the people walking out. Somebody walking out with a big screen TV on their shoulder, and the people could do nothing. There was no law enforcement at the time present. And, I think crime alone, let alone people's lives being in danger, is driving up the cost of living that people can't afford. So I think why now? Because we finally got a president that's willing to address this and do something about it. Our governor and the mayor of Chicago have just made a mockery of the city and the state and the people. And Joe Biden did nothing. And now we have a president that understands the dangers, understands the needs of the people, understands the desire that Chicago can be better, that the people want that, the people deserve that. So he's stepping up, doing something about it.
But let's talk about how Chicago, yes, we do have a lot of crime, and Paris and I were just talking about this, and I rattled off some other communities, right? Per capita, crime rates, 48% down in St. Louis, 38% in Memphis, 37, Detroit, 35, Baltimore. The list goes on, Chicago at 21. So why Chicago?
Well, I think the per capita, I understand that, but the sheer numbers demand something different. I don't think that, I think our great cities need to be great again, and I think that's what's on President Trump's agenda to restore law and order so that people feel safe. And where does it stop? Where does it start? It always starts from the top down, and so it should in Chicago and Cook County, in my opinion.
So is it a political move?
No, I don't think it's a political move at all. I think President Trump seriously cares about the people, the welfare of our economy, protecting property, families, and mainly children. And I truly believe that is what is at the heart of what he is doing.
Do you believe he should also be speaking about St. Louis, Memphis, Louisville?
In time, I think we need to be doing what we can do within the resources that we have. So I think sending, National Guard into every one of our cities, I think that would be a concerning message that people would have. So let's start with the big cities. Let's get crime under control. Let's get those percentages even lower. Mm-hmm. And I think the people of this state and this nation will feel better. I think they'll have confidence, restored confidence maybe in our government, and I think we will begin protecting our children, our most precious resource. So no, I agree with what he's doing, starting with the largest and the most populous and working down.
And you do believe that he will refer to one of those three reasons in order to let him send National Guard into a state like Illinois, or any state for that matter, the Insurrection Act, foreign invasion or rebellion against government. You'd mentioned foreign invasion. You believe that there is a foreign invasion going on?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think he has the means and the ability to do that within that. So when you've got a sanctuary city like Chicago that is controlled by a radical left governor or mayor like Brandon Johnson, when you've got someone just with the means of J.B. Pritzker to stand up and just tout that, my gosh, he just got through signing over more health care benefits to these illegal immigrants. When we have these illegals, when we have people here, our own veterans who can't secure the needs that they are owed, and people are fed up and frustrated with that. That is all a byproduct of these illegals who should not be here.
So it feels more like, to you, you're referring kind of to our crime problem more from the immigration part of it than notoriously gang violence here on the streets of Chicago.
Well, we when we talk about the gangs, do we know that they're not here illegally? So I think it all works hand in hand, and I think it all works together. I truly believe that. Let's start with what we know is the problem, and I think eventually we will find the root of the problem. So I absolutely attribute gang violence to illegal activity with people being here illegally. Sorry.
That's okay. What happens, that's the beauty of Zoom, right? We cut each other off, unfortunately. So if the National Guard is brought here and people protest it, what should happen to those people saying, no, not in our community?
Well, as long as there's not any violence and they honor the law, they have the right to do that. Mm-hmm. That's the other great thing, that this freedoms. We all want the law to be interpreted the way that we want it. And if I'm mad about something, maybe that doesn't give someone else the right to be happy about it. But that's this free process, this wonderful republic that we live in, and they have the right to do that as long as they don't break the law.
If you listened to President Trump earlier, and Paris Schutz talked about this too, the president kind of waffled on this. Are you going to go to Chicago, or is the National Guard going to go to Chicago, or are they not? He kind of went back and forth a little bit. What do you think are the odds that this will happen?
I think the odds are great because it needs to happen. So President Trump is, there's sometimes I scratch my head and I try to figure out, just what exactly is going on, and usually within a few days after, it all makes sense. So President Trump is he's a great leader. He's bold. He's confident. He's got a wonderful team around him. They're doing the work that should have been done for the last 4 years. And I think at the end of the day, he will do the right thing. I have no doubt about that.
Mr. Darren Bailey, are you running for governor in 2026?
I tell people no, and I don't know. No, my name is not out there anywhere, and I don't know. My wife Cindy and I and a few close friends are still we're still considering all the possibilities. So my heart breaks for Illinois. Illinois deserves to be better. Chicago deserves to be better. I saw that firsthand during the race of 2022. So in the coming weeks, if we see there is a path to remove J.B. Pritzker from his destructive policies and actions, I'll certainly hit the ground running.
Okay, so it's a possibility. What's holding you back? Finding a good running mate?
Oh, they're just considering life here in Southern Illinois on the farm with our children and our grandchildren. I love life. That's what I've been doing this morning, walking the fields, trying to gather an idea of what the yields are going to be, and that's about like trying to figure out what the future of Illinois is going to be. So, you count the cost. You count the cost through reality, through a lot of friends and advisors, and as we continue to pray for wisdom, I have to have that confidence that our party, the Republican Party, will step up, will show up to vote. And I think that if that happens, we will win. But I have to be confident of that. So that's what we're currently digesting.
Darren Bailey, we appreciate your time. I'm jealous. I'd like to walk through a field too. That would have been a nice morning, huh? If you decide to run, come back on. Let's break some news on Chicago Live.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. It's 1:40. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Chicago Live. Coming up on 1:43 on your Monday afternoon. Hope it's going good for you. We are going to switch gears here a little bit. We are going to be hearing from Governor Pritzker and Mayor Brandon Johnson talking about what we've been talking about for most of the show already with the potential of National Guard coming into the state of Illinois. But let's switch gear to our commuters. The Metra making some big changes on several lines. With us via Zoom this afternoon is Meg Thomas Riley, the spokesperson for Metra. How are you, Meg? Doing okay?
I'm great for a Monday.
Okay, for a Monday, right? All right, so let's talk about this. Some big changes, specifically on 3 different lines, correct?
Correct. I mean, one of the changes is a little smaller, but on 3 of our lines, the BNSF to Aurora, the UP West to Elburn, and the UP North to Kenosha, we are changing schedules. The first 2, the BNSF and the UP West, start on September 8th. So, not this week, but 2 weeks from now. The BNSF, most of that is really we're expanding the express service because we're seeing it being used and the train's getting very crowded. So we're trying to lighten the load and give people more opportunities to board and use those express trains. On the UP West, it's a little more making stops more consistent and looking at travel patterns. So it's not necessarily adding trains, it's changing the stopping patterns on a few trains. And then on the UP North, we are on September 15th going to be expanding the weekend schedule, and most notably significant expansions on Sunday. So essentially the same number of trains are going to be operating on Saturdays as they are on Sundays. That also means for holidays, people are going to have more options to travel on the UP North.
I hope you had notes in front of you because that's a lot to remember. These changes are coming about just because out of pure necessity, what you're seeing. right? With ridership.
Right. What we're seeing with the ridership, well, we're not back to pre-COVID levels. What we're seeing from looking at data that we're pulling from the Metra app is that 95% of the people who rode us pre-COVID are still using our service. They're just not using it as often. So what we're seeing most of the time is that Mondays and Fridays are light, although Fridays are starting to build a little bit. And the middle of the week is packed. And that's a lot due to remote work patterns. And so we're trying to make it not only accommodate the riders that are coming on board, but make, in some of these changes, especially for the UP North line, make the system easier to understand. So you're not going, okay, what schedule am I looking at? It's just a weekend schedule.
How often do you make these changes?
We make them as needed. Mm-hmm. I'd say lately, post-COVID, we've probably had something changing about every 6 months on at least one or two of the lines. But now we're building up to, we actually have nearly as many trains as we did pre-COVID operating on the weekdays.
Yeah. Last question for you, Meg. There's a lot of talk about funding lately with our transportation, right? And just recently, $74 million was shifted from Pace and Metra to the CTA. Thoughts?
Okay. Yeah, it's a little, as usual with these funding things, a little more complicated than that. What is being shifted over is out of the sales tax and the other funding that's provided to the transit agencies and basically to the RTA. Then there's a statutory formula for how it is dispersed between the CTA, Metra, and Pace. Okay, so that's 85% of it. Then there's a 15% that goes to the RTA. They don't use all of that. And the rest of that pot is called discretionary. And that $74 million is actually the discretionary that normally would be shared amongst all the agencies. It's now going straight to CTA to prevent them from going over the fiscal cliff first.
Okay. All right. No fiscal cliffs. We're going to steer clear of the fiscal cliffs. All right.
That's what we're hoping. We're hoping something happens during the veto session that resolves all this for everyone. But in the meantime, we're trying to address, while we're here, we're trying to keep moving forward so that if that comes, we have the information we need to know where the cuts are going to do the least harm.
Yeah. Okay. Meg Thomas-Riley, spokesperson for Metra. We appreciate you coming on and talking about all these changes. Thanks so much.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you. All right. It's 1:48, just a couple seconds away. Caitlin Cody joining us once again.
Hi.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
You done good.
Very quiet. This whole week is going to feel like this too.
It's amazing.
Highs
Are
in
your
the 70s.
windows are open?
Yes.
During the day, at night, maybe a little toasty inside during the day, but then when night rolls around,
I mean, today's 71 degrees is our high.
It's just fantastic.
It's perfect. Yeah. So this week is going to be really quiet. I know it's that fall feel. We kind of did this drastic right turn, and now we're already getting chilly.
I know.
Yeah. Brace yourself. So here's the thing. Over the next couple of days, we're going to be in the low 70s. We have partly to mostly sunny skies. And looking out the window right now, there's quite a bit of cloud cover, but we do expect dry conditions at least. I will mention high waves are expected in northwest Indiana, southwest Michigan through at least tomorrow afternoon. So stay out of the lake because of the wind direction. We just have that northerly breeze, so that it's pushing the waves, directly south. With that being said, it's going to be a nice day for whatever you have planned outdoors. Temperatures tonight down into the chilly levels. I would say close your windows at night, depending on where you're located, of course, but I think the 50s, it's going to be too
even
cold.
upper 40s in some parts, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
a little too chilly.
By Wednesday, upper 70s are expected, and then we get the chance for a little bit of rain on Thursday, maybe a rumble of thunder, but small potential for wet weather as a cold front swings through. And then this weekend's looking good. So far, it looks dry with highs in the upper 70s.
Labor Day weekend.
Yeah. Hello,
Where did that
fall.
come from?
Chilly.
I know.
It's time
it
to
is
get
nice.
the moms
chili.
and decorate. Yeah.
I know.
Oh, chili with the chili.
And making some chili. All right, Caitlin Cody, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Well, you're welcome.
All right, we'll be back after a 2-minute break. Welcome back. We are excited. We're going to go to Cassie Carlson. She's live at Hallis Hall. The Bears coaches, they just talked. Cassie, what's the update?
Yeah, so we just heard from offensive coordinator Declan Doyle. We will not hear from Ben Johnson today. We will be hearing from him tomorrow, and tomorrow is really the big day for the Bears and all of the NFL because it's cut down day. So training camp is about 90 players. They have to cut it down to 53 players, and the Bears are already getting started. They've released 11 players, and I'll give you some of the big names on that list. Ian Wheeler, he's the running back. He was a training camp darling from a year ago in Hard Knocks, then tore his ACL, came back this year, and just he's going to be put on waivers. If you clear waivers, you can be signed back to the practice squad. So we'll see if he clears those waivers and if he's back on the practice squad. And then another one would be quarterback Austin Reed in a tough position. There's 4 quarterbacks on this roster in training camp, and he's behind Tyson Bagent, who just signed the 2-year extension, and Case Keenum, who is the veteran in the room and is going to be used to teach Caleb Williams the ropes of the NFL. So those are 2 of the bigger names on that list. But yeah, we heard from Declan Doyle, talked a little bit about the slow start to the offense that we saw in Kansas City, the botched snap on the first play, which he just said is unacceptable. He said the snap was late, so Caleb Williams sped up the process of the handoff to Olamide Zaccheaus, and that's where the fumble happened. But he said anytime that the ball is on the ground, it's considered unacceptable. And then he talked a little bit about when they're going to start implementing their game plan against the Vikings for Monday Night Football. He said they have a countdown right now. It is 14 days until that season opener, and they are going to be playing a blitz-heavy Vikings defense that Brian Flores runs, and it can cause quarterbacks fits. So he said they still have a couple practices left this week. They're going to then turn their focus later in the week to start game planning for the Vikings. And then the Bears are going to head out to practice here in a couple minutes, and we'll hear from Cole Kmet and Kevin Byard after.
Okay, great. It feels like an eternity till that first game, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Training camp is a long, long process. It's like 5 or 6 weeks. I can't even remember at this point. And, you know, you sit outside in what was majority the heat of like 90-degree days for like 2.5 hours watching these practices go. And you're seeing them go up against just each other. Then you get the games where they go up against other teams. So it's a very, very long process. But I think, you know, seeing the first team offense play the entire first half against Kansas City kind of made it feel like a little bit more real. Now, it also, I think, caused a little bit more concerns of what we might see from this team early on in the season, given the fact that the offense was clicking against the Bills. They had that shutout win, but they were playing against the Bills' backup. So then you see them play against the Chiefs' first-team offense, and it didn't go so smooth. I think there's still a lot of kinks for this team to work out over the next 14 days, and Ben Johnson alluded to that in his post-game press conference, saying it was just disappointing. Too many mental errors that they need to clean up before it really matters.
Okay, so you're going to have all the highlights from the coaches' press conference tonight at 4, 5, and 9. Cassie Carlson live at Hallis Hall. We appreciate it so much. You're such a friend to the show. We appreciate it. All right, more Chicago Live back after this. Welcome back. Coming up on the 2 o'clock hour here on Chicago Live. I'm Elizabeth. Thanks for tuning in. Of course, we're on your Fox Local app. We're on the website, fox32chicago.com, our YouTube channel. We appreciate you hanging in there with us. We're going to be hearing from Governor Pritzker momentarily in the next hour. He is riding a water taxi to a press conference, and he's going to be talking about the potential of National Guard coming to the city of Chicago. There's a live look for you right there. It looks like maybe we're still waiting on the governor to arrive there. So we're going to take that live. But first, we want to get to, it's Monday. Let's think about the weekend, huh? Labor Day weekend is coming up. We've got Jessica from the TSA joining us this afternoon. Jessica, how are you today?
I am good, thank you.
You're good. You're not standing in a line, TSA line, huh? That's good, right?
No, our lines are moving great, yeah.
Speaking of lines, Labor Day weekend, how's the TSA feeling about the upcoming weekend?
We're excited. It is definitely going to be busy. We want passengers to be prepared. We're looking at kind of an extended holiday period, looking at starting Thursday all the way through Wednesday, more than 17 million passengers across the country. So it's going to be busy. If you're flying out, give yourself plenty of time.
How does this Labor Day weekend stack up to previous Labor Day weekends?
Yeah, so it's comparable. I don't think we're necessarily thinking, we've had some record-breaking days across the country this year. Specifically at O'Hare, I want to highlight, we have had 9 of our top 10 busiest days ever this summer. So if you look at our top 10 days of all time, they are all June, July, August, except for number 10 on the list, and it probably is going to be replaced soon. So it's just been a really busy summer, again, in Chicago and across the country, and we really just want passengers who are traveling, wrapping up the summer with their Labor Day trips to be prepared for busy airports.
Okay, I know you're not a travel expert, but you're a TSA expert. What do those numbers tell you? 9 of the busiest days were recorded in Chicago over the summer? What's that tell you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's a supply and demand thing, and I think we're seeing more flights, we're seeing busier flights, but, it's great news, and travel is back, and certainly there are trends about, where those days are hitting, where those peaks are hitting, but again, for people who maybe have not traveled a ton this summer, I really just want them to be prepared, give yourself that extra time, don't go in unaware and not be expecting that a lot of people are also taking trips.
How is the TSA handling all these passengers?
Yeah, so, we always work closely with our airport and our airline partners so we can staff appropriately, down to the lane, down to the hour. We know how many people we're expecting. And so we are ready for those high throughput days. But we always want to get the message out to passengers because they play such a crucial role in keeping those lines moving, packing smart, not bringing prohibited items, arriving early. Those are all decisions that the passengers make, but they really have an echo effect on everyone else in line behind you. So when you make the best decisions and get there on time and don't bring prohibited items, everybody appreciates it.
Help us help you, right, Jessica?
Yeah.
Talk about those banned items. Is there any changes with those recently?
I definitely want to talk about shoes on. That's our new change that we've had. Back since July. Everybody keeps their shoes on in all lanes now, which has really been well received. And the other kind of big change we had, which I don't even think people are really feeling anymore, is Real ID, which came out in May. So we are seeing high compliance in the 90 to 95% range at airports across the country. So if you do not have a Real ID, encourage you to bring a passport or go to our website tsa.gov. We have a list of acceptable IDs. Run through that list. You might have something else that will work. But again, looking ahead to the fall, looking ahead to those holidays, if you haven't dealt with Real ID yet, you still have time. Just get it done.
If you don't have I know we've talked about this before, but let's talk about it one more time. If you don't have the Real ID, you got a flight this weekend, you don't have time, you can still travel. Just going to take you an extra minute.
Yeah, we're giving those people extra security screening. And what that means, it might vary by operational needs, airport space, all of those things. So just give yourself extra time. But again, I also just want to remind people that the passport does work. So even if you're flying domestically and you have a passport, bring that and that'll get you through with no issues.
Has there any changes with prohibited items? I know you talked about shoes on, you talked about the Real ID. What about, bottle sizes or anything like that we need to be aware of?
So far, we still have the same policies, reminding people about the liquid rule, 311, 3.4 ounces or less. 1 quart-size bag per passenger. Those are still the policies right now, but always refer people to tsa.gov. We have a feature called What Can I Bring? You can look up the name of an item, get very specific. It will tell you this can go in your check bag, this can go in your carry-on. Better just to do that research at home. Nobody wants to be in that position of you're at the checkpoint, oh my gosh, do I want to abandon this? Do I want to run it back to my car? That's stressful. do the research at home and don't bring anything to the checkpoint that's going to slow you down.
Do you have any stats on Chicago's airports? The busiest day for O'Hare, the busiest day for Midway. This says the highest volume overall for TSA will be Friday. But what about Chicago specifically? Do you know those yet?
Same in Chicago. So Friday is going to be the busy day. And really look at that morning rush hour time. If you are flying those first flights of the day, like 5 to 8 a.m., that's going to be the busiest time every day, but especially on a holiday weekend, you want to not be trying to cut it close if you're on those early first flights of the day. So yeah, those are the busy days. But again, make sure you're just giving yourself plenty of time. We recommend 2 hours, and we say that's 2 hours from when you step foot in the airport. So if you're returning a rental car, if you're getting dropped off, I just flew out of O'Hare today. Sometimes it's that line on the freeway adds an extra 5 or 10 minutes just to get dropped off in the car. So give yourself a little bit of extra for all of that transportation stuff. 2 hours from when you step foot in the airport.
We got a lot of construction here in Chicago. We got a lot of road construction. Do these numbers at all tell you what the holidays may look like? Again, you're not a travel expert, but we need to start booking that stuff, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thinking ahead. And again, I would just say what we're looking at is sort of what have we seen over this year, and it has been just such a record-breaking year. It really high numbers in Chicago, but then again, we have set some national records too this year. Any day over 3 million passengers is like a really busy day for us. We've had several 3 million passenger days. So again, I think we are going to be looking at a busy holiday travel season as well. And yeah, book those tickets and get ready. Pack smart.
Okay, pack your patience, as one of my bosses used to love us say on the news. Text travel, the word travel, to ask TSA, right? For questions. That's a great tip.
Yeah.
Text the word travel to ask TSA, which is 275-872. What kind of questions can we ask there?
You can ask all the same questions that you would probably ask either at the checkpoint or in advance. We've had people who text that while they're in line and they get the answer before they make it up to show their ID. So it's a really cool automated service that, you can talk about prohibited items, can talk about ID, can talk about packing, all those questions you might have and kind of get you prepared for the screening experience.
All right, Jessica, how many people are still taking off their shoes? Because I think even though we just had this conversation, I don't have any travel coming up, but I know I got like 3 kiddos and we got a stroller and we got the whole thing. I have a feeling I would be like, everybody take your shoes off. Because it's just habit.
I think that's what we're seeing. And again, I think it's anytime we introduce a change, it kind of takes passengers a while to get used to it. So another good tip, we have different technology in different lanes too. Sometimes people get upset because they're like, hey, why are you asking me to take this out here? I left it in there, etc. And what it is there's different machines at different airports at different times. And that's why we ask you to divest or put your items down in different ways. So same with the shoes. Best tip, when you walk up, take those AirPods out, just listen to the instructions. Our officers really are helping you get through that line as quickly as possible. But again, on the passengers to pay attention and make sure they're following the instructions that they hear.
And a mom tip for you, if you got a stroller, pack a little extra time because they check those strollers really well. Jessica Mail.
Yeah, everything. I will do quick on families real quick, just because I think that's a great tip. Breast milk, formula, those can go over the liquids limit. But every item does need to be screened. So take everything out. Everything goes through the machine and then hold your kid as you walk through. But we're really doing a lot with families now. We have a couple airports that have special family-only lanes, not in Chicago yet, but maybe you're flying in or out of one of those across the country. You might see a family-only lane. And those are really cool too, because then you have a little more time and they have a lot of fun in those lanes. I'll tell you that.
Orlando, that's probably one of those airports, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Orlando and Orange County. You're right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. All right, Jessica Mail with TSA. Safe travels and thanks for your time here on Chicago Live. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Have a good one.
All right. After a 2-minute break, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Chicago Live, 2:08 on your Monday. We are still awaiting to hear from Governor Pritzker, who is going to be on a water taxi. And speaking of the story, we had him here in person, and now he ran on over. Paris Schutz, looking good, my friend. How was the run? Was the run good?
It was good. It was great. Yeah, 3-4 blocks. I missed my workout this morning, so this helps. And we are on the, I believe, the water taxi here, waiting for the governor. He should be here in any second. He's going to do a little boat tour, and then we're going to go have a press conference with a bunch of other public officials. I think the point is to show off some of the nicer parts of Chicago. But here, this location is pretty strategic for one big reason. Look what's behind me there.
I see the Trump Tower. Okay.
So probably no accident that's where we're going to start this off. So this will be the first public on-camera comments from the governor since that report and since Trump has confirmed today that there are these plans to send in the National Guard here, although he is very confusing in terms of like whether he's going to have the governor work with the governor and have him request it, or just send it in against the governor's wishes, which obviously legal experts have explained is not constitutional except for very rare instances. So that's where we're at right now. We're a little late here, but governor should be coming behind me at any moment here, and
so you haven't seen
getting
him
on
yet.
the water taxi.
You haven't seen him yet.
No.
Okay, so you were busy, you running to your next location, but I did have a conversation with Darren Bailey. He did not break news, darn it, on our show about running for governor, but he said, of course, there's a lot of talking going on. But when talking to him about this, Paris, he did suggest, those three things we were talking about: Insurrection Act, foreign invasion, rebellion against government. He does believe that you could consider what's going on with immigration in Chicago a foreign invasion. He does believe that could be the, and I said, okay, well, interesting, because now you're kind of, equating the National Guard coming here due to more, obviously with crime, but more with the immigration part and less about the gang violence that notoriously is here in Chicago.
Yeah, so that would only apply if the focus of this is for immigration and to help, assist ICE in immigration raids. And, on the one hand, you can say, well, this is a foreign invasion. I think foreign invasion really means a coordinated state backed or terrorist group backed endeavor to invade the country. That's not what people crossing the border really amounts to. The other thing is, the president has said many times that, illegal crossings are down to a very minuscule number. They have been very successful at closing off the border. So this is going to wind up in court. And how do you make the argument then in court that there's a foreign invasion while at the same time saying you've shut down the border and no one's coming across illegally?
I also talked to Mr. Bailey about, what are the odds? You specifically mentioned earlier that the president kind of waffled, right, when asked about National Guard coming to the state of Illinois. He kind of backtracked a little bit on this. And it's like, well, if the governor needs it, waffling a little bit there. And I said, well, what are the odds? What do you think, Mr. Bailey? Will they come? And he said, yeah, I think that they will come.
Yeah, it seems like that's where he's leaning. Although, again, he was both ways here. I think the president, if he's mastered anything, and I've observed over the last 10 years, is he really likes to see how this plays out in the media. He's a very media obsessive president, and the optics and the images and the political back and forth is a big sort of contributor to the decisions that he makes. And so, fired the first shot, so to speak. I think he's going to see, how the response plays in the media, the pushback. I think the debate, he likes having the attention and the debate on both sides. And so he's going to kind of sit back and take a look at what the media optics of this are before he decides whether it's in his political interest to make a move like that. Obviously, there's politics involved in all of this. These are blue cities, blue states. You mentioned the red states that have cities with higher murder numbers per capita are not being talked about. And that's a point that should be brought up if the strategy is public safety across the country in the big cities. So that's I think what's happening right now, this pushback in the media coverage of this will influence the decision he makes.
Speaking of optics, have you, my friend, ever been on a water taxi with a politician?
No, I've been on a water taxi doing a live shot before, just talking about how cool the river is and how it's improving. And we're going to have a river swim for charity later in September, I think. And so the river's getting cleaner and cleaner and cleaner. And that's fun to note. It's still, the color that it seems to be when we dye it on St. Patrick's Day, or it's settled into this nice, pretty turquoise shade. But I don't know that I want to take a dive into the river quite yet. We'll see. We'll see how the swimmers handle it.
Well, hopefully this press availability doesn't get out of hand and that doesn't happen. Do you think...
Well, we'll see. Maybe the governor shows up in some swim trunks and we all jump in. I don't know.
Hey, that could be fun. You got time for that, I think, Paris. You're not doing nothing
Talk
today.
About optics. Now, that would be something.
Talk about optics. Do you think that Governor Pritzker would be giving this much attention to this storyline if perhaps a presidential run wasn't on the horizon for him?
Yeah, I think that's part of this. This is a chance, especially in the national landscape, to sort of elevate himself like Governor Newsom has. But even if politics weren't a part of this, the governor is the commander of the National Guard, and a president usurping the governor's authority would probably be a big story regardless. And any governor, Republican or Democrat, would probably be very forceful in terms of how they push back on a president using this authority outside the bounds of the law and outside the bounds of local elected leaders. Local elected leaders are elected by the folks in Illinois and in Chicago to set the laws here, and they're the ones that command the National Guard. So in each state, so this is like part of a bigger tug of war between the federal government and states' rights. And the Trump administration has taken the position that the federal government should trump state law and state rights with laws that he doesn't like. And you see that today with, cash bail. You've seen that with sanctuary policies, and all those play out in the courts. And the courts, over the years have decided these cases in favor of cities and states, that they do have the right to set these kinds of laws, even if federal law might clash with some of these laws. So it's part of the bigger battle here. Trump has really taken on states, especially blue states, with this kind of policy.
And Chicago just appears to always kind of be on the tip of the president's tongue, right?
I wonder why that is. Chicago is always a spark plug for debate. People love it or people complain about it. And so it's the third biggest city in the country. It's the middle of the country. Its crime rate is higher than New York or LA, and we've got that right there.
The Trump Tower, right?
So Chicago is something, obviously a city that Trump is very aware of and very familiar with. Its problems and its good sides. So we're still waiting for the governor here.
Give us the lay of the land. Well, not the lay of the land, but just the program. We're expecting to see the governor. He's going to be talking before he gets on the water taxi. What are we expecting over the next hour?
Yeah, I think he's going to be talking here on the water taxi. I think showing off the beautiful downtown and the river, and then we are expecting a bunch of public officials to talk about the legality of this situation, and then those are the answers I think we really want to get. What are the plans? Can the state preemptively try to seek an injunction in the courts based upon the president's comments and the reporting in the Washington Post? Before troops even get deployed, can they go to court? I think those are questions that I'm interested in And the spectacle is the spectacle, but I think we want to know what the plans are, how this is going to play out, so Chicago residents have a sense of what's going to be happening in their city, and whether they're going to see, now they have armed guards, armed with rifles in DC walking around, and I think that's something that might ruffle a lot of feathers here in Chicago. The mayor talks a lot about building trust between communities and the police department, and that is a crucial part of crime fighting, is that the police have to build trust in the community so people can go to them with tips and rely on them. So all those things kind of are part of this discussion.
And that relationship takes time, obviously. I asked Mr. Darren Bailey earlier in our broadcast here on Chicago Live, what good would the National Guard do? They're not police officers like you and I have mentioned. What good would they do? And he kind of took the stance that even just the presence of them being here would speak volumes.
It could be. I mean, it could be that, just walking down the streets is what the strategy is, to just have a presence to maybe deter potential crime. I don't know what the evidence says of whether that works. It looks like we're getting set. Here comes the governor right behind me. So why don't I flip the camera around and we can get a sense of how do I flip it? I don't know. You can just.
No, that's okay. We've got the shot. Yeah, we've got the shot. All right, Paris, we're gonna let you go, and we appreciate you so much because you've got your other job to do as our political reporter for Fox 32. There's Governor Pritzker. He's joining it. Paris, we appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Okay. All right. You bet.
Thanks, you. Elizabeth. All right. So it's coming up on 2:19. Governor Pritzker just arriving at his water taxi ride that he's going to be taking up and down the Chicago River a little bit. He's shaking hands there. We believe he's going to be taking some questions from the press. Maybe on the taxi, perhaps. Not exactly sure. This is the first for us, a politician getting on the water taxi, but possibly taking a little bit of Q&A. Maybe he's got a statement to read. He's going to be taking that water taxi for a little bit, kind of taking a little tour, and then there is going to be a press conference after this ride. He's going to get off. He's going to walk to the press conference where he'll be joined by Attorney General Kwame Raoul and U.S. Senators Tammy Duckworth and Dick Durbin. Let's listen in as Governor Pritzker comes up those steps, hopefully, and joins the media and all the cameras up here on the water taxi, on the Chicago water taxi. Let's listen in.
I'm going to try to bring you up.
Hello, everyone, and welcome aboard Chicago Water Taxi. Please give us your undivided attention for this important safety announcement. This vessel is inspected and certified annually by the U.S. Coast Guard and is fitted with all required safety. Life rings are located by the pilot house and forward on the main deck. Life preservers are stowed in labeled storage lockers.
You said you can move in a little bit? Or?
Yes. Please do not tamper with them, as they are for emergency use only. In the unlikely event of an emergency, a uniformed crew member will distribute and assist in the donning of life preservers. Instructions for their use are located inside the locker. Please do not stand on the seats or sit on the seat backs or trailers. Feel free to move
Hey, Paris, how's it going? Are you strictly on the political side, or are you? No.
What do you need?
When all this dies down, this is the conversation to happen at a higher level, but because I have my show 3 nights a week, I want to just talk about. Yeah.
All right, you're watching Chicago Live right now on your Fox Local app, website fox32chicago.com and our YouTube channel. We are following along on a little water taxi cruise this afternoon in the 2 o'clock hour here on Chicago Live. Governor Pritzker is going to be joining some members of the media here on this water taxi, and they're going to be kind of cruising up and down the Chicago River. As soon as the governor boarded the water taxi, it took off. So we do believe that we haven't seen him yet, but we do believe that the governor is on that water taxi and will be speaking to the media shortly. This is kind of a precursor to another press conference that's going to be happening in just a few minutes after the water taxi docks somewhere. They all get off, then they're going to walk to a press conference nearby. And Governor Pritzker, of course, going to be talking about the idea that President Trump wants to send National Guard into the state. Talking about whether or not it's legal and how they feel about it. Here comes the governor and his entourage. Let's listen in.
Sorry.
All right, where do you want me? What's the best spot?
Right there. Oh,
Okay.
can I just kneel down?
Everybody, what a beautiful day in Chicago. Glad to have all of you here. Some of you I know from out of town. We're really pleased to show off the greatest city in the world. So happy to take any questions.
Governor, today in the Oval Office, the president mentioned your name several times. He blamed you for crime in Chicago, said this is all your fault. Your response to that?
Well, appreciate his recognizing that Chicago actually has had a drop in crime significantly, in fact, in half in the last 4 years. And we've had a murder rate that's dropped by 37% just in the last year. We're very pleased about the progress that we're making. I know that I live rent-free in the president's head, and I wish he would spend some time.
Governor, quick follow-up. What do you do if the National Guard is activated and comes here? Can you take preemptive action? What happens?
Look, first thing we're going to do is take him to court because it's illegal, it's unconstitutional. Frankly, it's un-American to send troops into an American city the way that he wants to fight crime. There is literally a law on the books that says he's not allowed to do that. So we're going to stand against that. We're going to make sure that he's held accountable for that. And most importantly, he should know that there is no emergency in the city of Chicago. I think you can see what a lovely place this is. I just walked on the lakefront this morning and walked to dinner last night with my wife. Yes, like other major cities across the United States, there is crime. But indeed, it is dropping precipitously in the city of Chicago, and it's in part because of the work that we're doing at the local level. If he wasn't taking away funding for police, if he wasn't taking away funding for fighting crime, things would be even easier. But unfortunately, he is creating a challenge for all of us and defunding police.
Governor, has there been any communication with the DOD or with the administration since that report Saturday? The president even hinted that maybe he would seek your cooperation in this, and then he kind of reversed that.
Well, strangely, the president seems afraid of me and won't call. So I have not heard from the president, haven't heard from Secretary Hegseth, haven't heard from anybody from the administration about what their plans are. We only read about it in the Washington Post and understand that they have some plan that they've been putting together. So we're making sure that we're prepared, that we're ready to go to court, and that we're pushing back on the narrative that he has that somehow there is a problem in the city of Chicago that is worse than other cities across the country. Let me add one more thing. There are 30 major cities across the country whose crime rate has gone down, violent crime rate has gone down by 17% over the last year. Ours has gone down 31%. So very pleased that we're beating the rest of the major cities across the country and that things are so much better in the city. The president ought to do a little reading so that he understands the progress that we've made and the fact that we do not need troops on the streets of the city of Chicago.
Governor, this is all very intentional. You're floating right now in front of Trump Tower. Is there anything you can do to stop him from federalizing the National Guard here?
Look, we're going to take him to court. We're going to make sure that they know, that the court knows and understands that there is no cause for this, that there is no emergency, there is no law in the books that allows him to put federalized troops on the streets of the city of Chicago. That's what we're going to do to begin with. But I think all of you being here is helpful for us, making sure that you can see that what a great city we really have and that there is no emergency here. That's important for all of you to recognize and to report on. There's not an emergency. There is crime like there is in other cities, but ours is actually better than the other major cities across the country.
I have to give you the opportunity to respond to some of the personal attacks we heard in the Oval Office. He called you incompetent. He talked about your weight. What's your response to the president?
Well, you know, from my perspective, it takes one to know one on the weight question. And the president, of course, himself is not in good shape. So he ought to respond to that from me. I would say also that his personal attacks on me are just evidence of a guy who's still living in 5th grade. He's the kind of bully that throws invectives at people. And because he knows that what he's saying is actually commentary on himself.
Governor, is this punishment for being a sanctuary city? Do you think this is punishment for being a sanctuary city?
Well, the president of the United States doesn't even understand what that term means. And I'm very pleased that we have a safe city that is protective of all of our residents, the people who are following the law, people who are paying their taxes, people that are our friends and our neighbors. And so, and again, if he is to live up to his promise, what he ought to be doing is allowing us to prosecute people who actually commit crimes. And if they are undocumented, we would keep them in prison for whatever term they are committed to, and then deport them. We've asked for that. That doesn't seem to be what this president wants to do. He just wants to pick people up off the streets without warrants and toss them out of the country. Some of them even have been U.S. citizens.
Last question.
We've done a lot of reporting on the Posse Comitatus Act. What the exceptions would be: Insurrection Act, foreign invasion, and rebellion against the government. Can you just comment on perhaps if he utilizes some of those laws?
None of those things are happening, Paris, here in the city of Chicago. So there is no grounds for him to call in troops to Chicago.
And Governor, what do you say? Just quickly.
And you can see it dropping over and over again. And we're making real progress because we've made the investments to do that. In fact, I've invested in increasing police and invested in police. He's taking money away from policing in the city of Chicago and in the state of Illinois. He ought to look to the red states where they've got higher crime rates than the state of Illinois.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you in front.
All right, you've been watching Chicago Live. You are watching a live picture from our camera crew out on the Chicago River. They are moving down the Chicago River. Governor J.B. Pritzker holding a bit of a Q&A with some reporters that are also on board that water taxi. Governor Pritzker is going to be speaking even more in just a few minutes, right around the 3 o'clock hour. He's going to be next to Attorney General Kwame Raoul, U.S. Senators Tammy Duckworth and Dick Durbin. Some of the comments that he was just, of course, he's being asked about the National Guard being sent to the state of Illinois, whether that's legal. What is the state of Illinois going to do about it? And of course, Governor Pritzker saying he is calling this un-American. He says he's going to hold the president accountable, that there is no emergency in Chicago. Quote, see what a lovely place this is. Of course, this is optics, right? Paris Schutz and I have been talking about this afternoon. This is a nice view of the Chicago River. It's sunny out. It's lovely out. So he's trying to show that, see, Chicago, there isn't crime everywhere. He did mention that crime is dropping, and this is one of the cities where it's dropping dramatically. He sourced 30 other major cities whose violent crime has gone down by 17% over the last year. Ours here in Chicago, Governor Pritzker says, has gone down, the violent crime rate down by 31%. He said that we don't need the National Guard here. We are going to take him to court. There is no cause for this, no emergency. There is no law that allows the president to put federal troops on the streets of Chicago. We're going to be following this story. We're going to take a quick break. We'll see you back here in 2 minutes. Welcome back. It is now 2:34 on your Monday afternoon. Hope it's going better than the Dow Jones Industrial for you. Down 300 points, 317, 318 points today on your Monday afternoon. We're going to go back to a live picture that we just heard from Governor Pritzker a little bit about the situation with President Trump hoping to send in National Guard troops into the state of Illinois. This is a live look from a water taxi, an unusual way of getting to a press conference, I must admit. I've covered a lot of stories here in Chicago, never got to ride on a water taxi with a bunch of politicians and media to get to a press conference, but there's a first time for everything. All kind of part of Governor Pritzker pushing back against this idea that President Trump says that there is an emergency here in Chicago when it comes to crime, and to help fight it, President Trump wants to send in National Guard troops as they have done in Washington, D.C. Of course, President Trump does have there's less restriction in D.C. There's no governor. It's not a state. So the president does have the right to move in troops there. Legally, federal law does not say that the president has the right to send in troops. Governor Pritzker just talking momentarily with some reporters there, talking about that crime rates are actually down here in the city. There's out of 30 major cities whose violent crime has gone down by 17%. Here in Chicago, our violent crime rate down 31%. So Governor Pritzker calling it un-American. He says he will stand against this notion that we need troops here in Chicago, and he will take him to court. They know that there's no cause for this. There's no emergency, no law to put federal troops in the streets of Chicago. One reporter talked about personal attacks. President Trump has been known to attack Governor J.B. Pritzker's weight, and Governor Pritzker fighting back, says takes one to know one on the weight issue. The personal attacks are evidence of a guy who's still living in the 5th grade, kind of making comments that that President Trump is intimidated perhaps by Governor Pritzker. So he's fighting back against President Trump. We do expect to hear more from Governor J.B. Pritzker, as well as Attorney General Kwame Raoul, and also U.S. Senators Tammy Duckworth, Dick Durbin. They're all going to be at a press conference. They're going to get off that water taxi. They're going to go set up at a press conference, and that will be in just a couple of minutes. But we're going to go back to the White House right now, where President Trump was taking questions. This was a bilateral meeting with the president of South Korea, Lee Jae-myung, but reporters are still asking questions to President Trump. Let's listen in here at the White House.
I was never a fan of his. I thought he was stupid. I thought he was, a guy that only wanted to go into war. He liked killing people. I thought he was essentially a bad guy, but I'm not involved in that. No, you'd have to ask Pam Bondi about that.
Are more raids coming, sir? Are more raids like that coming, sir? Are more raids like the one on John Bolton's house coming?
More raids? I don't know. You'd have to ask the Department of Justice. They raided my house, I can tell you that. They did a big raid on my house. They took away everything that wasn't pinned down, and they took away some of that too. No, they raided Mar-a-Lago. They started that. These were bad people that we had in our government before. They raided Mar-a-Lago. They went into my wife's area. They went into my son's area, my young son. And what they did was a disgrace. But how did it work out? I see. We're in the Oval Office. I guess it didn't work out too well for them, did it? They are bad people. They're sick. They're sick people. And they came in with their guns into Mar-a-Lago, like 98 people. I wasn't there. Fortunately, I wasn't there. But they are very evil, very sick people, that group. And if they would have won the election, this country wouldn't exist as we know it. This country would have been a failed country. And now it's the hottest country anywhere in the world by far. We are the hottest country in the world by far. Okay.
Mr. President?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. President Lee met with the Japanese Prime Minister before this summit.
That's good.
So is there something to discuss regarding the cooperation among the South Korea, US, and Japan?
I think so. Look, Japan is a great
Welcome back. It appears we had a little technical difficulty there, but let's turn it over to a live camera down in Florida right now. It's 2:39 on your Monday afternoon. Apparently some sort of a large drug bust. Let's listen in to this press conference.
Ally of us, and I had a little bit of a hard time getting you two together because you're still thinking about comfort women, right? Comfort women. That's all they wanted to talk about was comfort women. And
law enforcement agencies that are here today as well, and many of the ones that aren't. And it's as the deputy director down at Janet South, I see firsthand every day the cooperation and the collaboration that goes on between all of these groups to make this mission and our mission as successful as it is to detect and monitor, but also to support the Coast Guard, both Coast Guard District Southwest and Coast Guard District Southeast, in executing their part of the mission, which is to get the drugs. In a whole government collaboration that makes detection monitoring so effective. But we're not here to recognize those agencies as much as we are the incredible work you see here in front of you on the collection of 27 plus, and I'm going to say metric tons because we track it in metric tons, but I did the math, it's the same as the pounds. 27 plus metric tons of cocaine and 15.9 thousand pounds of marijuana. And in addition to that, as the Admiral mentioned, set a new Coast Guard record for the largest offload, single offload by a U.S. Coast Guard vessel. Led by Hamilton during the 2 months that they are out at sea, so 2 months only. They were assisted by the other ships, as he mentioned before, the Hamilton, Diligence, the Vigilant, the USS Cole, USS Minneapolis, St. Paul, and the frigate Friesland from the Dutch. It was a glorious grouping of ships at a single time, and to bring together the large offload that you see here today. But I think if you want to see in general what's keeping America safe from drugs, It's this. It's the work they're doing out there every day, every night, 365, 24/7, out in the East Pac, Eastern Pacific, and the Caribbean. This is what's keeping drugs off the streets of America, and this is what's winning the war on drugs in general. An impressive group effort. On top of that record as well, I want to acknowledge the Hamilton in general, the crew of the Hamilton, for demonstrating aggressiveness and perseverance from the day they arrived on mission, and it's resulted in an interdiction of 20 of that 27 metric tons, 20 plus of it belonging to the Hamilton alone. This is not just an impressive number, it is, we believe, the largest offload of a single ship for a 2-month patrol, or any patrol as well. So Captain McWhite, you and your crew should be very proud of this effort, and we expect you back this fall. Maybe if Admiral Shammy will let us, we'll definitely take you back this fall. How about a round of applause for the ship, the Hamilton, and the efforts that they did over the last 2 months. Lastly, I want to thank Hamilton for what I know has not been an easy lift in the last couple of days to be ready for this event. So I want to say bravo Zulu to the crew and the captain for putting on, being ready for this type of offload event, which goes with a lot of man hours, a lot of heavy lift to get things where they need to be and make sure the ship looks as great as it does today. So from there, I just say this is an example of what your Joint Force and Coast Guard are doing for you every day to make America safe, to bring in the drugs before they get to America, and produce just a phenomenal effort on this mission. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Greg Kehoe. I'm the U.S. Attorney for the Middle District of Florida, part of the Department of Justice, of course. I'm with other elements from DEA and FBI, part of the Department of Justice, and other law enforcement elements in Department of Homeland Security, including others. This element is in the Middle District of Florida is called Panama Express, and they are investigating these matters. And Panama Express, so you know, is the most successful counter-drug operation in the nation's history for over 25 years. The U.S. Attorney's Office, FBI, DEA, Coast Guard Investigative Services, and the Department of Homeland Security have done the following. Contributed to the arrests of almost 4,000 drug traffickers, including 400 leaders in these organizations. Denied over $45 billion in revenue, and seized over 1.3 million kilograms of cocaine. Each of these interdictions impacts foreign terrorist organizations, the worst of the worst, where it hurts them the most, their wallets. Foreign terrorist organizations are the focus of the Department of Justice and the President in his Operation Take Back America, and they are responsible for the drug trafficking you see before you. Many of the interdicted vessels we are talking about left Venezuela. It is a haven for Tren de Agua and Cartel de Solis, organized crime gangs in Venezuela. These are foreign terrorist organizations responsible for bringing drugs and violence to the United States, and they are a threat to our national security on a daily basis. There is no place that drug traffickers can hide from the United States Coast Guard and its partners, and we are all partners in this. If you are on the high seas and the water smuggling drugs, we, the Coast Guard, and our partners will find you and stop the federal agents and prosecutors doing what you're doing. You will then be sent to the Middle District of Florida and elsewhere for prosecution, and the evidence that they seize will be used in those cases. You will be brought to justice by the United States as appropriate, but keep in mind that this investigation, these matters will continue, these interdictions would continue, and the frontline operations on the high seas will continue, such that nobody is going to be able to hide. Thank you very much for your time.
Good morning. My name is John McWhite. I'm a proud crew member of the Cutter Hamilton. Thank you for joining us today as we honor the dedicated crew of Cutter Hamilton after an exceptional deployment. I would like to welcome Deputy Assistant Secretary for Senate Affairs, Mr. Ott, Chief Counsel for Senator Moody, Ms. Bergel, Admiral Chamey, and the Honorable Mr. Kehoe. Thank you all, distinguished guests, for joining us here today as we celebrate the accomplishments of Cutter Hamilton. The U.S. Coast Guard is unique in that it is our specialized abilities, LE authorities, and international partnerships that enable us to detect and interdict traffickers hundreds of miles out at sea to stop the flow of illegal narcotics from reaching the approaches to the United States. Additionally, Hamilton's recent mission execution is backed by Force Design 2028, which is already positively impacting operations, specifically with new streamlined practices, eliminated redundancies, and empowered decision-making at all levels appropriate for success. With full support from Secretary Noem, Mr. Sean Planke, and our Commandant, we now have an increased capability to accomplish our mission at sea and to do so efficiently and effectively. Over the past several months, Hamilton worked collectively while supporting U.S. Southern Command's Joint Interagency Task Force South for counter-narcotics-focused maritime interdictions. The crew of Hamilton is the ship's heartbeat. In addition to our outstanding permanent party members, our team was comprised of special operators from tackling.
All right, everyone, great job by the Coast Guard.
It's 2:49. You're watching Chicago Live. We were just checking in there at a press conference talking about a big drug bust down in Florida. But let's go to Washington, where Attorney General Pam Bondi is now speaking.
Thank you to our great U.S. Attorney here. We also have our DEA Administrator, Terry Cole, our HSI Acting Executive Associate Director, Derek Gordon, FBI Operations Director, who I'm with every day, Chad Yarborough, U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of Florida, Jason Quinones, U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Texas, Justin Simmons, and Acting Assistant AG Matt Gagliotti, who I'm with almost every day as well. We're here to announce a landmark victory for the Department of Justice, our law enforcement partners, and the United States of America. As you've heard, drug kingpin Ishmael Zambada Garcia, also known as El Mayo, has confessed to a lifetime of crime in service to the Sinaloa cartel, a foreign terrorist organization. Thanks to the relentless work of our prosecutors and our federal agents, El Mayo will spend the rest of his life behind bars. He will die in a U.S. federal prison where he belongs. His guilty plea brings us one step closer to achieving our goal of elimination of the drug cartels and the transnational criminal organizations throughout this world that are flooding our country with drugs, human traffickers, and homicides. Under President Trump's leadership, the Department of Justice is on the front lines of this fight. We're standing shoulder to shoulder with all of our law enforcement partners to dismantle these narco-terrorists, and that's exactly what they are. They are narco-terrorists. El Mayo was one of the most prolific and powerful drug traffickers in this world. His partner was El Chapo. They were co-founders of the Sinaloa cartel. They brutally murdered multiple people and flooded our country with drugs. Their reign of terror is over. He will never walk free again. Over the last 3 decades, El Mayo and his accomplices made billions of dollars, hundreds of millions each year they were making by bringing poisonous drugs into our country. No longer. The Sinaloa cartel initially built their businesses with cocaine, but then under El Mayo's leadership, they turned to heroin, they turned to fentanyl. They purchased fentanyl precursor chemicals from China. They made the drug in Mexico and flooded it into our communities, killing our kids. El Mayo also ensured that the Sinaloa cartel operated and protected its drug trafficking business by relying on extreme violence. They used military-grade weapons and directed hitmen to kill their adversaries. They committed gruesome assassinations, kidnappings, and horrible crimes to maintain discipline within their own organization. He ordered the murders of countless individuals and rivals. Many innocent people died as a result of this as well. El Mayo operated with impunity at the highest levels of the Mexican drug trafficking world by paying bribes to government officials, by bribing law enforcement officers. He controlled corrupt officials and officers who protected his workers and his drug shipments that traveled from Mexico into our country. El Mayo's crimes have been so prolific that in the past 2 decades, he's been indicted in no fewer than 16 federal courts across our country. 16. From Western District of Texas to Chicago to here in the Eastern District of New York. He escaped justice for decades, but under President Trump's leadership, he has finally been brought to justice. Today's conviction is the latest success in the United States fight against deadly cartels and transnational criminal organizations. We've made remarkable progress. Just to give you a few examples, under President Trump's direction, the United States State Department designated the Sinaloa cartel, together with 5 other cartels and MS-13 and TDA, as foreign terrorist organizations due to the serious threat that they pose to our national security. As a result, the DOJ has already charged leaders of the Sinaloa cartel with narco-terrorism and charged alleged members with support and supporters of TDA, MS-13, and CJNG, currently one of the most violent gangs, cartels in Mexico. They provided material support to a terrorist organization. We are calling these drug kingpins what they are: international narco-terrorists that invade our country, threaten the sovereignty of our borders, and destroy our communities. They are terrorists, and we will prosecute them like they are terrorists. Since President Trump took office, Mexican authorities have expelled more than 50 high-ranking cartel leaders and other dangerous criminals to our country to face prosecution. More than 50. These are historic numbers that ensure that these criminals will face justice and face justice on American soil. We now have leaders from CJNG, Sinaloa, and Los Zetas in custody. Our prosecutors in the Criminal Division and the Northern District of Illinois obtained a guilty plea from Ovidio Guzman Lopez, the son of El Chapo, and another leader of the Sinaloa cartel, the co-founder. Just a few weeks ago, on August 14th, we announced criminal charges against 5 cartel leaders and high-ranking members of these united cartels. We will not rest until Americans are safe from these narco-terrorists. Thanks to our law enforcement officers, both here and in Mexico, who often put their lives on the line every single day to protect us and to get these violent leaders off the streets. We are not done yet. At President Trump's direction, we will continue to fight until every single cartel boss is behind bars and on American soil and in American prisons for the rest of their lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney General Bondi. As you've heard, a short time ago, Ismael Zambada Garcia, known as El Mayo, pled guilty here in the Eastern District of New York to being the leader of the Sinaloa cartel, the largest drug trafficking organization in the world. Among other things, he admitted to leading a continuing criminal enterprise and to RICO conspiracy charges. This is an historic day. With today's plea, the Sinaloa cartel has been decapitated. Its two founders and leaders, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, also known as El Chapo, and now El Mayo, both stand convicted. These defendants built a criminal empire in Sinaloa, Mexico. Their cartel grew like it was a cancer throughout the hemisphere. They flooded the United States with deadly drugs, including cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, and then fentanyl. El Mayo was first indicted in the Eastern District of New York in 2009, and we continued to add charges, including, as the Attorney General mentioned, fentanyl trafficking, right up until this very year. As a result of his conviction, El Mayo faces a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. This conviction is also a testament to the unrelenting determination of the prosecutors and the law enforcement agents who would never stop seeking to bring El Mayo to justice. As our Attorney General has pointed out, the plea marks the conclusion of a decades-long effort by hardworking and dedicated public servants across the United States.
All right, you've been listening into and watching a press conference out of Washington with Attorney General Pam Bondi talking about El Mayo, a Mexican drug lord pleads guilty to drug trafficking charges. We're going to continue to monitor that, but we also want to let you know that we're still waiting for Governor Pritzker. He has gotten off that water taxi on the Chicago River. He's going to be speaking alongside Mayor Brandon Johnson, U.S. Senators Tammy Duckworth and Dick Durbin, as well as Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul. So we're going to be bringing that to you live, but in the meantime, we're going to continue with that press conference out of Washington.
And the DEA, along with numerous other law enforcement agents throughout the government. I would also like to thank our counterparts in the Mexican government. Finally, I gratefully acknowledge the presence here today of Frank Tarantino from the DEA, Ricky Patel from Homeland Security, and Philip Bates from the FBI. I'm now going to ask Acting Assistant Attorney General Matthew Galeotti to say a few words.
Thank you, United States Attorney Nocella. Good afternoon. My name is Matthew Galeotti, and I'm the Acting Assistant Attorney General for the Criminal Division and a former Assistant United States Attorney here in the Eastern District of New York. Today marks another milestone in the Department of Justice's relentless efforts towards the total elimination of cartels. One of the most notorious narco-terrorists of all time, Ismael El Mayo Zambada, was convicted in a United States courtroom, having confessed to more than 3 decades of crime in service to the ruthless Sinaloa cartel. For decades, the Sinaloa cartel, under El Mayo's leadership, made billions of dollars by importing dangerous drugs to the United States, intensifying the drug epidemic in our communities by flooding our streets with cocaine, heroin, and ultimately fentanyl. Today, El Mayo admitted to crimes of a staggering scope, including leading a sprawling criminal enterprise that distributed more than 1.5 million kilograms of cocaine in addition to other drugs. He made corrupt payments to operate with impunity, and he protected Sinaloa's operations by ordering acts of extreme, heinous violence, leaving a trail of human suffering, including innocent victims, in his wake. Pursuant to his guilty plea, El Mayo will spend the rest of his life in prison and owes $15 billion in forfeiture to the United States. Results like this are not possible without the prosecutors and agents who have done an extraordinary job building the case piece by piece and seeing it through to completion. This is another significant result under Attorney General Bondi's leadership in the department's unparalleled drive to eliminate cartels. As part of that effort, we have seen more than 50 high-ranking cartel members expelled to face justice in American courtrooms, collectively one of the greatest takedowns in United States law enforcement history. Other leaders have been charged as foreign terrorist organization leaders, and members have been charged as well. We continue to pursue these individuals to make them see justice in a United States courtroom. As Acting Assistant Attorney General, I want to thank all of our law enforcement partners, and I'll briefly flag in particular trial attorneys Jace Bourne and Kirk Handrich, as well as all of the U.S. Attorney and law enforcement partners with us. The Attorney General has made clear that the department's goal is eradicating the harms caused by cartels in American communities. And the department is quickly making historic progress towards achieving just that. Thank you. It's my honor.
Trying to be like, where's the best? But also, J.K. Rowling is kind of a hard man, so it's his body.
There's a bunch of other folks on the other side. Thank you. You're going to be right behind Senator Durbin. Who needs to
I can pick your one. Some signs
Honda Center, do y'all want to come on this side too? There's just more space over here. Should have had the EFS. Honda Center? Y'all want to come over this side? Just to make it even. Y'all want to make it even? Yeah. There's just a lot of people over here.
Split shift. We're going to work on it. That's what we're going to do.
I usually do.
I think we should have some signs like in the back.
Yeah.
Can we have maybe a few people in between so that the signs aren't concentrated in like maybe can you switch there?
Yeah.
And Ellen, can you kind of come
because maybe
it won't like
maybe
block
blocking,
him.
Yeah. Maybe blocking the sign.
I think someone should hold this sign.
Hey, we haven't seen can't have signs in this event. I'm so sorry. No signs in the event, so we got to get the signs out of the shot. Tomorrow, the city can put it up for you on our channel.
What about the
any and all signs? I'm so sorry.
All right, we got to take the signs back.
The camera's good. Okay. Sorry, guys.
We'll have like another 20 people coming out. Could you all take a couple steps back before we just make sure we have room for everybody? Thank you all for being here. Yeah, we really appreciate it. As far back as you guys can. We have a lot more people coming. Thank you.
Photo bond.
Yes, I did. What? Yeah, I got two. Patrick. Thank you. Well, I'm kind of like, we're partners, but I'm a comedian.
Did I play at Ellis Church? Maybe 3 years ago. I think it's been like 3 years ago.
So we have like another 50 people coming out, so I need to make a big gap here. So I want to start a line here, and you guys push that way, and you guys push that way.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Keep going, keep going. Back, back, back. Like 15, 20 feet.
You're doing the Moses.
I'm part of the Red Sea. Yeah. More guys, keep going, all the way. All the way, keep going. Thank you, guys.
Brotherly love. Oh, well, same different kind of love. Well, different. Coming up. Wow, two angry men. Actually, I have to say, you were.
This is a special report from Fox 32 Chicago.
And we interrupt TMZ with some breaking news. Governor J.B. Pritzker is addressing President Trump's plans to send National Guard troops right here to the city of Chicago.
That's right. He's expected to be joined by other top officials. You can see him there. He is about to take the stage. The president, by the way, calling out both the governor and Mayor Johnson when it comes to Chicago crime. This on the heels of what's going on in D.C. As we know, more than 1,000 people have been arrested there since the troops were deployed. And Tia, just last night, for the first time, we saw those National Guard troops with weapons on their waists. So obviously this is a situation there that is only escalating.
Yeah, and we don't know what that's going to look like for the city of Chicago. What we do know is those National Guard troops arrived in D.C. on August 7th. And since then, 12 days of no extreme crime there has been reported. So again, a lot of questions about what this will potentially look like here in the city of Chicago. You do see Tammy Duckworth right there, the senator on camera. We know Mayor Brandon Johnson is there as well.
Vocal opponents of this move by Trump, who has vacillated somewhat. Paris Schutz talked about this over the weekend. He's gone back and forth. He's going to do it. He's not going to do it. I talked to State Rep LaShawn Ford, who back in 2010 called for the National Guard to be brought in here under different circumstances, Tia, when crime was at near all-time highs. He said at that point he did so under a coordinated effort with the governor, with the mayor. He said this time is different. He doesn't want to see the federal government here in Chicago with National Guard troops. And he also pointed out, remember, back during the DNC, and you and I covered the DNC, yes, there were National Guard troops here. They were on standby. They were in the distance. They weren't holding firearms. And this was a CPD operation. And he says CPD can handle anything that's going on right now in Chicago.
Yeah, we're looking at Senator Dick Durbin right there as well, and also Congressman Mike Quigley on the ground as well. And of course, Lieutenant Governor is there as well in all of this. We've been talking about this for quite some time, a lot of differing opinions on it. And so it will be interesting to see what the governor has to say about all of this. You also see Krishnamurthy right there as well, who would be standing behind the governor, Raja, through all of this. So here we go. Let's listen and see what our governor has to say.
That we are in, and the actual crisis, not the manufactured one, that we are facing in this city and as a state and as a country. If it sounds to you like I am alarmist, that is because I am ringing an alarm. One that I hope every person listening will heed, both here in Illinois and across the country. Over the weekend, we learned from the media that Donald Trump has been planning for quite a while now to deploy armed military personnel to the streets of Chicago. This is exactly the type of overreach that our country's founders warned against. And it's the reason that they established a federal system with a separation of powers built on checks and balances. What President Trump is doing is unprecedented and unwarranted. It is illegal. It is unconstitutional. It is un-American. No one from the White House or the executive branch has reached out to me or to the mayor. No one has reached out to our staffs. No effort has been made to coordinate or to ask for our assistance in identifying any actions that might be helpful to us. Local law enforcement has not been contacted. We have made no requests for federal intervention. None. We found out what Donald Trump was planning the same way that all of you did. We read a story in the Washington Post. If this was really about fighting crime and making the streets safe, what possible justification could the White House have for planning such an exceptional action without any conversations or consultations with the governor, the mayor, or the police? Let me answer that question. This is not about fighting crime. This is about Donald Trump searching for any justification to deploy the military in a blue city, in a blue state, to try and intimidate his political rivals. This is about the President of the United States and his complicit lackey, Stephen Miller, searching for ways to lay the groundwork to circumvent our democracy, militarize our cities, and end elections. There is no emergency in Chicago that calls for armed military intervention. There is no insurrection. There is no insurrection. Like every major American city in both blue and red states, we deal with crime in Chicago. Indeed, the violent crime rate is worse in red states and red cities. Here in Chicago, our civilian police force and elected leaders work every day to combat crime and to improve public safety. And it's working. Not one person here today will claim we have solved all crime in Chicago. Nor can that be said of any major American metro area. But calling the military into a U.S. city to invade our streets and neighborhoods and disrupt the lives of everyday people is an extraordinary action, and it should require extraordinary justification. Look around you right now. Does this look like an emergency? Look at this. Go talk to the people of Chicago who are enjoying a gorgeous afternoon in this city. Ask the families buying ice cream on the Riverwalk. Go see the students who are at the beach after school. Talk to the workers that I just met taking the water taxi to get here. Find a family who's enjoying today sitting on their front porch and ask if they want their neighborhoods turned into a war zone by a wannabe dictator. Ask if they'd like to pass through a checkpoint with unidentified officers in masks while taking their kids to school. Crime is a reality we all face in this country. Public safety has been among our highest priorities since taking office. We have hired more police and given them more funding. We banned assault weapons, ghost guns, bump stocks, and high-capacity magazines. We invested historic amounts into community violence intervention programs. We listened to our local communities, to the people who live and work in the places that are most affected by crime, and asked them what they needed to help make their neighborhoods safer. Those strategies have been working. Crime is dropping in Chicago. Murders are down 32% compared to last year and nearly cut in half since 2021. Shootings are down 37% since last year and 57% from 4 years ago. Robberies are down 34% year over year. Burglaries down 21%. Motor vehicle thefts down 26%. So in case there was any doubt as to the motivation behind Trump's military occupations, take note. 13 of the top 20 cities in homicide rate have Republican governors. None of these cities is Chicago. 8 of the top 10 states with the highest homicide rates are led by Republicans. None of those states is Illinois. Memphis, Tennessee, Hattiesburg, Mississippi have higher crime rates than Chicago, and yet Donald Trump is sending troops here and not there? Ask yourself why. If Donald Trump was actually serious about fighting crime in cities like Chicago, he, along with his congressional Republicans, would not be cutting over $800 million in public safety and crime prevention grants nationally, including cutting $158 million in funding to Illinois for violence prevention programs that deploy trained outreach workers to de-escalate conflict on our streets. Cutting $71 million in law enforcement grants to Illinois, direct money for police departments through programs like Project Safe Neighborhoods, the state and local anti-terrorism training program, and the Rural Violent Crime Reduction Initiative. Cutting $137 million in child protection measures in Illinois that protect our kids against abuse and neglect. Trump is defunding the police. To the members of the press who are assembled here today and listening across the country, I am asking for your courage to tell it like it is. This is not a time to pretend here that there are two sides to this story. This is not a time to fall back into the reflexive crouch that I so often see, where the authoritarian creep by this administration is ignored in favor of some horse race piece on who will be helped politically by the president's actions. Donald Trump wants to use the military to occupy a U.S. city, punish his dissidents, and score political points. If this were happening in any other country, we would have no trouble calling it what it is, a dangerous power grab. Look at the people assembled before you today, behind me. This is a full cross-section of Chicago's leaders from the business world, the faith community, law enforcement, education, community organizations, and more. We sometimes disagree on how to effectively solve the many challenges that our state and our city face on a daily basis. But today we are standing here united, in public, in front of the cameras, unafraid to tell the president that his proposed actions will make our jobs harder and the lives of our residents worse. Earlier today in the Oval Office, Donald Trump looked at the assembled cameras and asked for me personally to say, "Mr. President, can you do us the honor of protecting our city?" Instead, I say, "Mr. President, do not come to Chicago." You are neither wanted here nor needed here. Your remarks about this effort over the last several weeks have betrayed a continuing slip in your mental faculties and are not fit for the auspicious office that you occupy. Most alarming, you seem to lack any appropriate concern as our commander-in-chief for the members of the military that you would so callously deploy as pawns in your ever more alarming grabs for power. As a governor, I've had to make the decision in the past to call up members of the National Guard into active service. And I think it's worth taking a moment to reflect on how seriously I take that responsibility and on the many things that I consider before asking these brave men and women to leave their homes and their communities to serve in any capacity for us. As I've said many times in the past, members of the National Guard are not trained to serve as law enforcement. They are trained for the battlefield, and they're good at it. They're not trained to arrest people and read them their Miranda rights. They did not sign up for the National Guard to fight crime. And when we call them into service, we are reaching into local communities and taking people who have jobs and families away from their neighborhoods and the people who rely upon them. It is insulting to their integrity and to the extraordinary sacrifices that they make to serve in the Guard, to use them as a political prop, where they could be put in situations where they will be at odds with their local communities, the ones that they seek to serve. I know Donald Trump doesn't care about the well-being of the members of our military, but I do, and so do all the people standing here. So let me speak to all Illinoisans and to all Chicagoans right now. Hopefully the president will reconsider this dangerous and misguided encroachment upon our state and our city's sovereignty. Hopefully rational voices, if there are any left inside the White House or the Pentagon, will prevail in the coming days. If not, we are going to face an unprecedented and difficult time ahead. But I know you, Chicago, and I know you are up to it. When you protest, do it peacefully. Be sure to continue Chicago's long tradition of nonviolent resistance. Remember that the members of the military and the National Guard who will be asked to walk these streets are, for the most part, here unwillingly. And remember that they can be court-martialed and their lives ruined if they resist deployment. Look to the members of the faith community standing behind me today for guidance on how to mobilize. To my fellow governors across the nation who would consider pulling your National Guards from their duties at home to come into my state against the wishes of its elected representatives and its people, you would be failing your constituents and your country. Cooperation and coordination between our states is vital to the fabric of our nation, and it benefits us all. Any action undercutting that and violating the sacred sovereignty of our state to cater to the ego of a dictator will be responded to. The state of Illinois is ready to stand against this military deployment with every peaceful tool we have. We will see the Trump administration in court. We will use every lever at our disposal to protect the people of Illinois and their rights. Finally, to the Trump administration officials who are complicit in this scheme, to the public servants who have forsaken their oath to the Constitution to serve the petty whims of an arrogant little man, to any federal official who would come to Chicago and try to incite my people into violence as a pretext for something darker and more dangerous, we are watching and we are taking names. This country has survived darker periods than the one that we're going through right now, and eventually the pendulum will swing back, maybe even next year. Donald Trump has already shown himself to have little regard for the many acolytes that he has encouraged to commit crimes on his behalf. You can delay justice for a time, but history shows you cannot prevent it from finding you eventually. If you hurt my people, nothing will stop me, not time or political circumstance, from making sure that you face justice under our constitutional rule of law. As Dr. King once said, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. Humbly, I would add, it doesn't bend on its own. History tells us we often have to apply force needed to make sure that the arc gets where it needs to go. This is one of those times. I look forward to taking your questions in a few minutes, but first, I'd like to hand over our podium to Mayor Brandon Johnson. Mayor.
Thank you, Governor, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to all of the state and local county leaders that are here with us today. So let's just get to the facts. Over the past 2 years, we have seen significant reductions in crime and violence. In the last year alone, we have seen more than a 30% decline in homicides. Let me say that again. We've reduced homicides in 1 year by almost a third. We've launched a robberies task force with the Chicago Police Department, effectively reducing robberies by almost 35%. We've worked closely with CPD to restructure the Detectives Bureau to bring the clearance rate up to 76%. It's the highest we've seen in more than a decade. We've worked with the Chicago Police Department and our Community Violence Intervention, CVI partners, to reduce shootings by almost 40%. Almost 40%. We've done that in 1 year. This is significant progress, and it's historic progress. We've had the safest April in the city of Chicago since 1962, more than 6 decades. And according to FBI data, Chicago is not in the top 25 of the most dangerous cities in the United States. And these facts are indisputable and widely acknowledged. Yet there are those who want to twist our words to make it seem as though we think that our job is finished. So let me be perfectly clear. Our work to make our city safer still continues. And while we have made progress, that doesn't mean that we will rest. In fact, we know that we have more work to do. And that work is what wakes me up every single day. It's what I think about before I go to bed. That is our focus every single day, and it will continue to be our top priority until Chicagoans feel safe in their neighborhoods, regardless of their zip codes. And we cannot call ourselves a safe city until every Chicagoan in our beloved city feels safe, whether you live in Austin or North Lawndale or South Shore. Every single Chicagoan deserves to feel safe. There are those who might ask, if we have seen consistent historic reductions in crime and violence across our city over the past 2 years, and if we are not even in the top 25 most dangerous cities, then why are we now being targeted by the Trump administration for a military occupation? We are being targeted because of what and who we represent. Chicago was known as a working class city. We are the birthplace of the labor movement, and we will always be a union town. But we're also a diverse city, Black and Latina, Asian, Indigenous, and whites. We are a city with vibrant neighborhoods that represent every single nationality and every immigrant community from around the world, with more than 40 different language groups that are spoken in homes across Chicago. And we are a progressive city. We believe in investing in people. We believe in standing up for the most vulnerable among us. We believe that the solution to homelessness is not the National Guard, but it is housing. Building affordable housing across American cities should be our top priority. We believe that the solution to immigration is not to separate families and throw grandmothers into the back of vans with unmarked vans and masked individuals. The solution is comprehensive immigration reform that allows anyone who wishes to come to our city or our country. If they want to work, they should have a pathway to citizenship. We believe that the solution to poverty is not incarceration, it's investment. Instead of declaring war on the poor, We should remember Lyndon B. Johnson's vision for a greater society that declares war on poverty. And we believe that you don't solve crime by sending in the military. You work every day towards constitutional policing and rebuilding trust between law enforcement and residents. You solve crimes and bring closure to victims when we ensure that our detectives division have all of the tools that they need. You solve crimes and you bring closure to victims when we hold people accountable, of course, but we have to do it constitutionally. Due process, after all, is still a right for every single person in this country. That's how we reduce crime. So we are being targeted because of who we are as a city more than anything else. We are a shining example of what happens when working people stand together. The last thing that Chicagoans want is someone from the outside of our city who doesn't know our city try to dictate and tell us what our city needs. As the mayor of this city, I can tell you that Chicagoans are not calling for a military occupation. They are calling for the same thing that we've been calling for some time, and that's investment. What safe cities across America all have in common, they invest in people. And that's what we're doing in Chicago. We need the federal resources to make sure that we're building more affordable housing, expanding mental and behavioral health care, education, all of these things that could reduce crime and provide real community safety. Instead of spending hundreds of millions of dollars for a publicity stunt to invoke chaos and terror, the federal government should spend that money on proven solutions to crime and violence reduction. We cannot incarcerate our way out of violence. We've already tried that, and we've ended up with the largest prison population in the world without solving the problems of crime and violence. The addiction on jails and incarceration in this country, we have moved past that. It is racist, it is immoral, it is unholy, and it is not the way to drive violence down. We cannot return to the same failed strategies that got us here in the first place. Under the previous presidential administration, we requested more federal resources to address gun violence in our city. We continue to make that same call. We have made significant progress on our own, but there is so much more that we can do if we had real support from the federal government. Our communities need more federal resources for public safety. There's no question about that. But unsolicited, unwarranted military takeover is not needed. Our message is simple. Listen to what our people are actually calling for. We're calling for investments, resources. This stunt that this president is attempting to execute is not real. It doesn't help drive us towards a more safe, affordable big city. And so, in closing, we have some very simple demands. We are calling on the Trump administration to release the $800 million for violence prevention funds that he stole back in April. We are calling for more resources to stop the endless flow of guns into our city. And we are calling for transformational investments into affordable housing and community safety. I'm proud to stand with all of the partners that are here today, as well as mayors and governors across this country. We will defend our democracy. We will protect our humanity. We will stand up for the interests of working people. And so that's the state, local government, the federal delegation that are all here, committed, standing firm in our values, standing up for the greatest freaking city in the world, the city of Chicago. Thank you very much. And with that, please welcome our Attorney General, Mr. Kwame Raoul.
Good afternoon. I started my tenure as Attorney General halfway through President Trump's first term. And since then, we and other state and local law enforcement partners have done tremendous work fighting crime in partnership with federal law enforcement partners. Throughout my tenure, and now as Attorney General, I've collaborated with federal law enforcement partners, including the FBI, the DEA, ATF,
Secret Service, HSI, and others to investigate and prosecute criminal activity in Illinois. And working together, we have successfully investigated and prosecuted gun crimes, drug trafficking, organized retail crime, internet crimes against children, and other crime. We have a great law enforcement leaders in Chicago and throughout in Illinois, including a great Chicago police superintendent, a great state police director, and a great sheriff. We have also had great special agents in charge and agents at large assigned to Chicago from the federal government. Together, we have embraced a one-team collaborative approach to fighting crime. I say this to emphasize that I'm not and have never been opposed to collaborative help from well-trained federal law enforcement agents. Were the president serious about addressing crime or criminal threats in Chicago, he would dedicate more resources to collaborative work that we already engage in with these federal agencies. What the president is instead doing is in no way embracing a serious effort to reduce crime. Deploying American military personnel who are not trained in civilian law enforcement tactics against American citizens does not promote public safety in our cities. Last week, we filed a lawsuit against the Department of Justice for unlawfully placing conditions on Victims of Crime Act grants. If the president and his administration were at all serious about crime, he would not place unlawful conditions on funds that help states support critical services for victims of crime, including sexual assault, child abuse, domestic violence, human trafficking, and other victims of crime. If the president and his administration were concerned about crime, he would not be cutting millions of dollars from proven community violence interruption programs. If the president and his administration were at all serious about addressing crime, the president would be communicating with the governor and Illinois law enforcement leaders. Instead, the president's plan is purely performative. Not only has the president not asked us whether federal intervention is needed, we have made no requests for the type of federal intervention we have seen imposed in Los Angeles or Washington, D.C. The apparent plans to move forward regardless of our unanimous opposition is an offense to the sovereignty of our state and the sovereignty of states at large. It is a dangerous step towards authoritarianism that puts our communities at risk. The Posse Comitatus Act limits federal government's ability to use military for domestic law enforcement. None of the prerequisites for National Guard deployment exist here. There is no emergency in the state of Illinois that requires the use of National Guard. There's no foreign invasion. There's no rebellion. My office has filed close to 36 lawsuits fighting the unlawful overreach of the Trump administration. And we're not afraid to do it again. And this is an administration that frequently disregards our Constitution and federal law. But notwithstanding all of these lawsuits and all of these prior federal overreach, it's possible that deploying members of the U.S. military against Americans could be the most egregious violation yet. It is immoral and it is dangerous. And we will use every legal tool to fight any unlawful deployment of the military against our American citizens in the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois. At this point, I would like to introduce our great U.S. Senator Tammy Duckworth.
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Oh, it is afternoon.
You made it.
I made it. Good afternoon, everyone. To echo our governor, thank you for being here. Though the circumstances that Trump is seeking to create are both deeply unfortunate and obviously unnecessary. Donald Trump never had the courage himself to raise his right hand and serve his country in uniform. But let me just say from personal experience, and that consists of 23 years in the military, 17 of which proudly as a member of the Illinois National Guard, that the men and women who are brave enough to wear this country's flag on their shoulder are doing so to defend our nation's rights and freedoms, not to protect a tin pot dictator's thin skin or to police their own neighbors. It's not what they signed up for, and it's certainly not what their training is focused on. I don't want to repeat too much of what Governor Pritzker had just laid out, so let me just say that it should come as no surprise that Donald Trump is once again attacking Chicago. He has for a long time, and he will probably keep on doing it for years to come. It is because he is afraid of us. But his attacks don't do anything to change the reality that he has a long pattern of politicizing and misusing our nation's military for his own partisan gain and to crush dissent, and that is beyond outrageous. I went to war. I was federalized as a member of the National Guard to defend America's freedoms. So you better believe that I'm going to speak out when he's doing his damnedest to keep other Americans from speaking out, from exercising their First Amendment rights. And let me say it again, one of the most patriotic things you can do in this nation isn't necessarily serving in uniform. It is standing up and exercising your First Amendment rights and speaking truth to power. We know that Trump's actions are not about law and order. Give me a break. We know this for 1,001 reasons, but I will give you one. Because Trump is flagrantly, even today, refusing to coordinate with state and local officials. Just this morning, I was in touch with the National Guard officials, and they confirmed to me that he has not reached out to them. And if he really cared about health and safety, he wouldn't have cut millions of dollars in gun violence prevention funding just weeks ago. Instead, this is just another sad, desperate attempt by a small man to distract the American people from the price spikes his own policies are still causing and the countless personal scandals he's trying to sweep under the rug and hope that we don't notice. We should not get distracted, but he also should not be forcing our Guardsmen and women to have to be away from their loved ones, forcing them to take time off from their full-time jobs simply to stroke his own ego. And let me be clear, our military will feel the cost of this PR stunt as it takes resources and focus away from the real missions they need to train for. What they should be doing is preparing for air assault missions. They should be preparing for convoy operations. They should be training to help us in the event of a flood or a tornado and other natural disasters. They should be training to fight, to take the fight to the enemies abroad, not to bring the fight to neighbors here at home. He is also inflicting reputational damage on our nation's military, which is supposed to be nonpartisan. He is taking it and he is deploying our troops on the streets of our nation's communities and hurting the readiness of the greatest fighting force on the face of the earth. Frankly, all this would be embarrassing if it weren't so devastating for those involved and so terrifying for the future and the security of our nation. Forcing the military uninvited into Chicago to intimidate Americans in their own neighborhoods does not make our nation stronger. It simply distracts our service members from executing their core mission of keeping Americans safe from the real adversaries who wish to do us harm. It's yet another unwarranted, unwanted, and unjust move straight out of the authoritarian's playbook that will only undermine our military's readiness and ultimately weaken our national security. Donald Trump should be worried about and should be focused on standing up to Vladimir Putin. Instead, he rolls out the red carpet for him. Donald Trump should be supporting Ukraine in its fight against Russia, and yet he does nothing of the sort. Donald Trump should be fighting the Houthi rebels, and yet he has not been able to do that, spending millions of dollars to ineffectively try to stop them from stopping shipping in the Red Sea. Maybe if Donald Trump hadn't dodged a draft so many times, and by the way, that's 5 times that he dodged a draft when his nation called and he decided, ouch, my bone spurs are hurting, he would have actually learned something about keeping our country strong. But that is obviously too much to expect from Cadet Bone Spurs. With that, I'll hand it over to Derek Douglas of the Civic Committee. Thank you. Or actually, I'm supposed to hand it over to Senator Durbin, our great senior senator from Illinois, Dick Durbin.
Thank you, Tammy. It's an honor to be here today. Make no mistake, the threat of federal troops to Chicago is not a serious effort to reduce crime in the neighborhoods of this city or our state. If it were a serious effort, it would be a coordinated effort with the mayor, the governor, law enforcement officials at all levels. It is not. The notion that we are engaging the National Guard in law enforcement has been described by each of the previous speakers, and I won't get into detail. But the men and women of the National Guard, I am proud to say, have served our nation and our country honorably over and over again. Proof positive, Senator Tammy Duckworth. She deserves a round of applause. When it comes to law enforcement, that is not the job of the National Guard, and that's not what they're trained for. And this president is making a point of cherry-picking blue cities and blue states on his crime campaign. As the mayor and the governor and others have said repeatedly, if you're looking for the worst of the worst, Chicago is not the first stop at all. There are so many other communities, even red communities, if you allow me to describe them as such, where there is much more needed. The real reason for Trump's action is clear. He is in the process of accelerating mass deportation. If you don't believe it is alive and well, speak to your friends in Little Village and Pilsen, as I have. The people who run the restaurants and the shops, the churches, and they'll tell you what's happened with the fear that is in this community today. And this is something that Donald Trump wants to build on. The goal to deport 3,000 immigrants a day. They've stated it publicly. That's what they're setting out to do. And sadly, they're marching toward that goal. It is one thing for Trump to give speeches as he has and to warn us of immigrants that are rapists and terrorists and murderers and criminally insane. But the reality is this. Of those who have been deported, fewer than 1 out of 10 have any criminal record whatsoever. Fewer than 1 out of 10. 90% of the people facing deportation have been doing their best to be good citizens, paying their taxes, raising their kids, going to the same churches we attend, and they expect us to stand up for them, and we should today. I think it's imperative that we do. There's a reason that our Constitution, laws, and history hold back presidents from invading cities and states. This is an act of political theater by Donald Trump, and sadly, we have to take it extremely seriously. My friends, don't walk away and say this is just another political issue. This is how democracies die. When people don't stand up and speak up for the basic constitutional rights and freedoms which are part of us in this country. It's time for us to stand up and make sure we state our position under the First Amendment by assembly and gathering, and I've been to many of them. I want to salute the leaders for always making a point of saying they should be peaceful and nonviolent. That's the starting point. The second part of it is the fact that in our mid-year election, which we're facing in a year and a few months, fewer than half the voters who are eligible actually turn up. That's the job for all of us to change. They can talk about reapportionment and redistricting. We need to register and make sure our numbers turn up in a way that makes a serious difference in the governorship of this country. I am proud to serve you in the Senate, but we have work to do in the remaining 16 months before this election. It is my honor to introduce Derek Douglas. He is president of the Civic Committee and president of the Commercial Club. Mr. Douglas.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Chicago has a long and storied history of tackling its challenges by working together across the public, private, and civic sectors to develop and implement solutions. As you've heard today, public safety is no different. Deploying federal troops or federalizing the National Guard without engaging state and local government, business, philanthropic, and community leaders, the ones who understand Chicago's needs and are on the ground working daily to make our city safer, is unprecedented and unwarranted. The Civic Committee formed a public safety task force in 2022, and when we formed that task force, we reached out to the organizations and the leaders who are working in the public safety space for so many years, and we committed to standing by them in the good times and the bad to try to make this city as safe as possible, and to identify ways for the business community to contribute to creating a safer Chicago for all, with an emphasis on gun violence reduction. Through those efforts, we work closely with the city, the county, and the state, CPD, Chicago's criminal justice system and leaders, philanthropy, and community-based violence intervention organizations in what we call a one-table approach. And as many of the previous speakers have mentioned, we are making incredible progress on reducing gun violence in our city, even though we have a ways to go. That said, we do believe there is a critical role for federal support that could benefit our city. And we would welcome those to help us be true partners from the federal government in this work. But to be helpful, it needs to be coordinated and integrated with our one-table approach efforts on the ground, not isolated and militarized from afar. For example, if the Trump administration wants to help, it can start by restoring funding for community violence intervention organizations working in our communities. You can work with our law enforcement professionals to stop the flow of illegal guns across state lines into Chicago. We can provide resources to take gun cases federal, and we can work with law enforcement entities to stop the deadly flow of fentanyl into our streets. So there are things that could be done, but none of those, to the best of our knowledge, have been put on the table. We have made progress through these coordinated, cross-sectoral efforts of the state, city, county, business, philanthropic, and civic leaders, and community-based violence intervention groups, and most importantly, law enforcement, local law enforcement. Thanks to these partnerships, Chicago has built one of the most robust community violence intervention sectors in the entire country, something we'd like to make a permanent feature of our public safety strategy to help us achieve our goal of making Chicago the safest big city in America. The federal government should look to engage with stakeholders to assess where help is truly needed, instead of cutting funding to this critical work or taking unilateral action that is missing local context. I represent the business community here today, and we stand by the governor, the mayor, our county president, our Illinois federal delegation, Superintendent Snelling, Attorney General Raoul, all of our other partners in this work, and the city that we love, to insist that any offer of federal support be closely coordinated and integrated with our one-table approach to reduce gun violence and its impact on our communities. What we need is aligned action. That's what we have going on in Chicago. What we don't need are disruptions to our economy and our businesses. Active duty military patrolling the streets of our city sends the wrong message and risks slowing our economy and disrupting the progress we've made together. It will impact businesses' bottom lines and ability to operate efficiently. It will impact tourism and employees getting to their jobs. It will impact morale. The kind of sweeping, uncoordinated, indiscriminate action being threatened sets a dangerous precedent, and we stand with our city and all Chicagoans to encourage the administration to productively engage with us to help us continue to make progress on this critical issue. Now, with that, I would like to introduce Paco Amador, who is the pastor of New Life Church, and the board president of New Life Centers. Thank you.
Thank you so much. As a young college kid, I came to Chicago to study downtown. And I remember as a hungry college student, got in a car with a bunch of people and we drove right into Little Village, Mexican immigrant neighborhood in the city of Chicago. There is an arch at the entrance of the neighborhood. It is, I love this arch. It's a symbol of what Chicago stands for. It's a welcoming doors for migrants and Spanish-speaking people from all over the Midwest of the United States. I go to that arch every single week as a local minister to pray at those doors. I love the fact that it's an arch, but it has no doors. The doors are never closed. There's no doors. For a decade, I was a Chicago public school teacher, and right across the street from our church, for the last 2 decades, I have been a pastor in this multilingual, multicultural community. I love being a pastor there. Through New Life Centers, we have been able to see the strength and beauty of a city that collaborates. Not just faith initiatives, elected officials, business, community initiatives, all of us together. From last year to now, there has been an 80% decrease in shootings and homicides in our community. And that is a powerful thing that no one can claim that they have done it. We have all done it together. Just yesterday, I was part of our congregation, and many other congregations in Little Village and North Lawndale closed down their services to be able to join in the historic Route 66 in Ogden Avenue. It never closes except yesterday. And it was a beautiful thing to see North Lawndale, South Lawndale coming together. Several years ago, our local alderman who's here, Mike Rodriguez, came over to my house. He knocked on the door and he said, "Hey, Pastor, come with me. Let's go and say hi to neighbors." I've never experienced that. I loved it. We walked in to one side of the street and we met. I didn't even know that many neighbors. I've been living there for 30 years. I didn't know so many of those neighbors. We had some great conversations. Then we went to the other side. We met other neighbors that I've never seen. We've lived across the street from each other. And we went to the other side. After 3 days of visiting and neighbors and having conversations, we ended up coming together with an idea for an abandoned lot right in the corner of those streets. Right now, if you go, there is a beautiful corner garden where there used to be chaos. The ingredients of neighborhood and city transformation, it's right there. Elected officials, faith community, business, neighbors, community organizations, all coming together to work together. I guess what I'm trying to say now is that Chicago, together with all these friends and community neighbors and collaborators, is that Chicago is a growing and thriving city, which under our watch will, with community, faith, local government, state collaboration, will continue to keep its doors open to all those who seek a thriving city. I love living in the city of Chicago, contrary to negative narratives. Every time I ask my kids, my wife and I have 8 children. Every single one of them have been born in the city of Chicago. Every time I ask my kids, "Hey, do you want to ride to school?" Most of my kids say, "Dad, I'd rather go biking in the city." I ask them why. They say, "Because I love this city." Today, I just want to say that we live in a thriving city, and we will continue to work together to see this city thriving even more. I want to welcome Reverend Sierra Bates Chamberlain, Executive Director of Live Free Illinois. Thank you. Again, God bless.
Good afternoon. I am Reverend Sierra Bakes Chamberlain. I'm the Executive Director of Live Free Illinois, where we organize over 120 congregations across the state, working at the intersection of gun violence and decarceration. What we are witnessing today is devastating. The President of the United States has chosen to target Black and brown communities, communities already traumatized by state-sanctioned violence and white supremacy. This is not just...
Well, a very good Monday afternoon to you, and thanks for staying with us. I'm Scott Schneider, in for Terrence tonight.
And I'm Tia Ewing. Thank you so much for joining us at 4. You just heard from top Democratic leaders responding to President Trump's threat to send the National Guard troops right here to the city of Chicago.
Governor Pritzker making it very clear there is no need for the troops that have not yet been requested, if they will be at all. The governor questioning the president's motives in suggesting that deployment.
This is not about fighting crime. This is about Donald Trump searching for any justification to deploy the military in a blue city, in a blue state, to try and intimidate his political rivals.